Chapter 1784. Moreover, his combat strength was constantly increasing as if there was no limit. The dragon sword realm flew out and merged with the 9 darkness demonic sword. This sword was extremely powerful and Lu Mingyue could not resist it at all. She could only spit out blood and fly out again. This was after Lu Mingyue had used 7 or 8 defensive barriers at the critical moment. Otherwise, she would have been cut in half if she had been hit by this sword. Impossible, I don't believe it. Lu Mingyue's face was pale as she gritted her teeth. The chaotic aura on her body was even more dazzling and a terrifying Earth-class treasure appeared in her hand. However, not long after, she was sent flying again and her injuries were even more serious. She could not believe it at all. This was because with her current combat strength, no one could suppress her other than the wavering light sacred ground and Yi Wudao. However, this young man in front of her was able to injure her severely. This was too shocking. Brat, just you wait. This is not over. She knew that she had lost to him this time. However, she was not satisfied and wanted to leave. She wanted to wait for her cultivation to increase before fighting him again. You want to leave? Lin Xian snorted. Do you think you can leave? Seeing that Lu Mingyue was trying to escape, Lin Xian snorted and attacked decisively. This was such a good opportunity. How could he let her escape? The dragon sword realm quickly surged out and countless sword chi flew forward. Boom! Lu Mingyue was instantly enveloped and the sword chi changed instantly, forming a sword chi cage and trapping Lu Mingyue completely. Whoosh! In the next moment, Lin Xian arrived beside Lu Mingyue. At the same time, the battle on the other side had also ended. Lu Mingyue's 3 kings fell from the void and their bodies were pierced. As for the young man from the Wind tribe, his body flashed and he fled into the distance. The void rippled and Gu Santong flew towards Lin Xian. He looked extremely calm. It seemed that the previous battle had been easy for him. Humph! Kill me if you can. Lu Mingyue was caught by the other party and said through gritted teeth, You think I don't dare? Lin Xian sneered and pointed his sword at the other party's heart. But then, his lips curled into a cold smile. Wouldn't it be a pity to kill such a beautiful woman like you? Feeling Lin Xian's gaze, Lu Mingyue's eyes were filled with fear. She asked in a trembling voice, What do you want? Let me tell you, if you dare to mess around, I won't let you off even if I become a ghost. Become a ghost? I'm afraid you won't have the chance. Lin Xian raised his hand and shot out several rays of sharp sword chi into his opponent's body. I'm lacking a maid. You can be my maid. Lin Xian laughed. With a wave of his hand, he blew away the sword chi. He wasn't afraid of his opponent running away. He had placed a powerful seal in his opponent's body. This kind of seal was something he learned from the dragon sword secret technique. Its power was extremely powerful. No one below the almighty level could break it. Unless the other party found an almighty who was not suppressed, or broke through to the almighty level, they would be able to break the seal. However, it was not easy to become an almighty. Moreover, in this space, all the almighty level experts were suppressed. They were unable to display their full strength. Therefore, no one here could break the seal on Lu Mingyue's body. Of course, Lin Xian was the only exception. Damned fellow. Kill me if you have the ability. Lu Mingyue gnashed her teeth. She discovered that she was unable to mobilize the energy in her body. What was even more infuriating was that the other party had actually made her a maid. Who was she? She was a proud daughter of the heavens, an outstanding genius of the All Beginnings Holy Land. She might even become the disciple of the saintess. Originally, according to the sect's plan, Lu Mingyue would return to the All Beginnings Holy Land and become the new saintess. But they never imagined that something like this would happen. She had actually been captured by the other party and became his maid. If this matter were to spread, he wouldn't be able to live anymore. Lin Xian lifted her chin and said with a beaming smile, As a maid, you should have the awareness of being a maid. I advise you not to act blindly without thinking. Otherwise, your end will be very miserable. To the side, Gu Santong was also stunned. He originally thought that Lin Xian would kill Lu Mingyue on the spot. He never imagined that Lin Xian would actually take her as his maid. What a good idea. Since they had captured Lu Mingyue, Lin Xian and Gu Santong didn't continue to attack. Instead, They went to a safe place and calmly waited for the battle to end. The battle continued for an entire night. Then, it came to an end. This time, the battle was even more intense than the previous Great Purge. Everyone had broken through. Everyone was unconvinced and wanted to fight for the greatest benefits. The result could be imagined. Blood dyed the forest red. The pungent smell of blood wafted through the air. In this battle, the original balance had been broken. The majority of the kings had been killed. Only a few peak powers had survived. For example, the power that Yi Wudao and the Alcade Saint Sun belonged to. As for the other powers, even Lu Mingyue's Bright Moon organization had been destroyed. Presumably, it wouldn't be long before the remaining kings and sovereigns would find a new balance and continue to survive. When another person broke through, perhaps the balance would be broken again. However, that would be a matter for a long time. There probably wouldn't be another battle of this scale in the near future. Lin Xian, Gu Santong, and Lu Mingyue set off towards the depths of the forest. Not long after, another change occurred in the forest. Due to the countless kings that had been injured yesterday, the entire ground was dyed red. However, no one noticed that the blood on the ground was flowing towards the sea of bones in the depths of the forest. In an instant, the blood flowed into the sea of bones, and the entire sea of bones changed. A terrifying aura quickly spread out from the sea of bones. Then, a murderous aura filled the sky, forming countless dark clouds in the sky. Boom! The dark clouds gathered, and huge bolts of lightning struck continuously. It was as if the world was about to end. Not only that, shadows appeared in the sea of bones. Some were like gods of war, some were tall demons, and some were terrifying beasts. The dead beasts and peerless experts all seemed to have come back to life at this moment. Boom, boom, boom. The terrifying aura blasted out in all directions. At this moment, all the surviving kings in the forest saw them. Everyone raised their heads and looked into the distance. They were extremely shocked. Looking at this scene, their minds went blank. Lin Xian, Gu Santong, and Lu Mingyue also stopped in their tracks. Looking at the terrifying scene in the distance, their expressions were extremely solemn. What's going on? The sea of bones is changing again? Lin Xian's expression was ugly. The last shocking change had happened in the Sea of Bones. That time, a terrifying white bone giant had appeared. Its strength had reached the almighty level, and it had swept through everything. Who would have thought that after such a short period of time, the Bone Sea would undergo another change? Chapter 1785. Let's go take a look. In an instant, the three of them made their move and rushed towards the Sea of Bones. They weren't the only ones. The remaining warriors in the forest also rushed towards the Sea of Bones. They wanted to see what was going on. Otherwise, they wouldn't be at ease. When they arrived near the Sea of Bones again, everyone was stunned. They were shocked by the scene before them. The terrifying lightning was like a heavenly tribulation that could even kill a mighty figure. And in the middle of the Sea of Bones, there were phantom spirits floating around, making one's scalp tingle. That terrifying aura made one tremble, as if some peerless demon king had awakened. It had an ancient, desolate aura. What a terrifying scene. Could it be that those ancient creatures have come back to life? Gu Santong's expression was solemn. It's fresh blood. Lu Mingyue's face was pale. As a woman, she was more observant, so she noticed that the surrounding fresh blood was flowing into the Sea of Bones. After this reminder, Lin Xian and Gu Santong also noticed this, and their expressions turned solemn. Thinking about it, it was because of the previous battle that the Sea of Bones had undergone such a shocking change. And this time, the battle was even more terrifying than the previous one, and more blood had been spilled. If all the fresh blood was absorbed by the Sea of Bones, who knew what would happen? More and more dark clouds appeared in the sky, as if they were about to crash down. The aura from the Sea of Bones became more and more terrifying. Even top young prodigies like Lin Xian, Gu Santong, the Alcade Sage, and Yi Wudao couldn't take it. As for the mighty figures whose cultivations were suppressed, they all looked solemn as they stared ahead. Boom, boom, boom. Just then, a low rumble came from the Sea of Bones. Is the white bone giant coming out? The surrounding kings were shocked. They couldn't forget the scene from last time, when the terrifying white bone giant was like a demon. With a wave of its hand, it could easily crush any king below the level of a mighty figure. Many were even prepared to run, but in the next moment, they were stunned. Because what was coming out wasn't the white bone giant from before, but an extremely terrifying aura. Then, a huge white bone palace gradually rose from the sea of bones, floating in the sky. What's going on? Everyone was stunned at this moment. They looked at the scene in front of them, not daring to believe it. It was as if they were dreaming. Was it all an illusion? Lin Xian was also shocked. He activated the great dragon sword soul in his body, and a mysterious light flickered in his eyes. But in the next moment, his frown deepened. Regardless of whether it was the great dragon sword soul or the heavenly secret god eye, both of them could break through illusions. As long as it was an illusion, he would be able to see through it. But now, the scene in front of him didn't change. In other words, the scene before his eyes was not a fantasy. Instead, it was real. A huge palace made of white bones rose from the bottom of the forest. It was simply too inconceivable. The palace made of white bones ahead was enormous, emitting a desolated aura. The city walls and gates were all made of bones. It was 300 meters tall and incomparably terrifying. It was grander than any city Lin Xian had ever seen. Not only that, but the white bone city walls were also filled with sword scars, as if they had experienced countless battles. On top of that, it emitted an aura of vicissitudes. Could this be the Antiquity City? Lin Xian was extremely shocked. The others' eyes flickered, as if they were facing a great enemy. Boom, boom, boom. After the palace made of white bones appeared, the lightning in the sky became even more violent. It was like a mad dragon, constantly descending and surrounding the palace. Buzz. But at this moment, the huge sword in the sea of bones suddenly emitted light, forming a huge sword shadow, slashing towards the palace in the sky. Beside the black sword shadow, mysterious runes appeared, carrying a terrifying aura, as if wanting to suppress the palace again. Buzz. But the palace had already appeared. How could it go back? So in the next moment, the huge palace emitted a terrifying aura, and terrifying runes surrounded it. A white light shot up into the sky, resisting the black sword light. Black and white light flashed, but there was no violent collision. Perhaps it was a different kind of battle that the others couldn't understand. In any case, Lin Xian felt that the surroundings were enveloped by the black and white light. It was quiet all around, and he couldn't hear any sound. In fact, he couldn't even sense the existence of the other kings. This situation lasted for a period of time before it gradually dissipated. In the sky, the huge sword stopped attacking, and the runes around the palace shone even brighter. Not only that, but the huge door of white bones was also slowly opening. Crack, crack, crack. A deep sound was heard, as if a pair of invisible hands were controlling everything. In the sky, the terrifying lightning became denser, forming a net of electricity that constantly intertwined. The kings in the surroundings held their breaths as they stared at the scene in front of them. They wanted to know what was inside the palace. Was it a great opportunity or treasure, or was it something else? Boom. Finally, the two huge doors of white bones were completely opened, and a cold aura surged out, sweeping in all directions. Everyone felt the aura, trembling as if their lives were being taken away. Boom. In the next moment, light rushed out of their bodies, resisting the power of death. Lin Xian also surrounded himself with sword intent, slashing away all the death aura around him. At the same time, he narrowed his eyes and looked ahead. Then, he was extremely shocked, because through the open door, he could see some of the situation inside. At the door, there were figures lined up neatly in a square. They wore ancient armor, and their expressions were solemn. They didn't move at all, and there wasn't any fluctuation of aura on them, as if they were terracotta soldiers. Damn, are they some important people's burial items? The Crimson Dragon looked at this scene, and his scalp went numb. Burial items? What's going on? Lin Xian was confused, and even Gu Santong and Lu Mingyue were shocked. The Crimson Dragon said, "In the ancient times, When those peerless and terrifying people died, they had a habit. They will use some experts as funerary objects to be buried in the imperial mausoleum with them. It's said that some of the dynasties in Zhengzhou often do this. Those dynasties aren't ordinary countries, but each of them is comparable to the clan of the ancients and the peerless sacred grounds. Their monarchs are extremely terrifying. You can say that the dynasties are the most terrifying forces in Zhengzhou. Chapter 1786. The monarchs of those dynasties are incomparably terrifying. It can be said that the dynasties are the most terrifying powers in the central continent. It is said that a long time ago, there was a great Qin dynasty. When their monarch died, he buried 50,000 kings with him. What? 50,000 kings? Buried with him? Lin Xian sucked in a breath of cold air. This method was too shocking. Lu Mingyue also seemed to have never heard of such a thing. Therefore, she frowned and said, "This doesn't conform to common sense. If so many kings were buried with him, wouldn't his dynasty's strength be greatly reduced?" Indeed, his strength would be greatly reduced. However, his foundation wouldn't be damaged. For those dynasties and your peerless holy lands, what decides their fate isn't the kings. Instead, it's your so-called foundation. I think you know this better than me. Lu Mingyue fell silent. Indeed, their all-beginnings holy land had some terrifying foundations. If they released them, they would definitely shock the world. Of course, it wasn't just the all-beginnings holy land. All the other peerless holy lands and ancient families had such foundations. At this time, the Crimson Dragon continued. Of course, this isn't because of personal preference. It's because of a legend. According to the legend, no matter how powerful an expert is, as long as they die, they will go to hell. And those monarchs hope to bring some elites to hell. Then, they will kill their way back to the mortal world and be reborn. That's why they bring so many powerful kings with them when they are on the verge of death. What? There's such a legend? Lin Xian felt his scalp go numb. The Crimson Dragon's voice was solemn. Some people are willing to do anything for immortality. Gu Santong's eyes flickered. He looked ahead and muttered to himself. Could it be that the Palace of Bones is the tomb of a peerless expert? And those silhouettes are the so-called funerary objects? Not only that, but the following scene was even more shocking. More and more dark clouds appeared in the sky, and the lightning became even more berserk. At this time, rain started to fall from the sky. However, this wasn't ordinary rain. Instead, it was a rain of blood. It was exceptionally scarlet and dazzling. The rain of blood fluttered down, shocking everyone and making their scalps go numb. They even hurriedly raised their energy barriers to resist the rain of blood. They didn't know what kind of terrifying result would happen if the rain of blood fell on their bodies, because they had never encountered such a situation before. At this moment, the kings who were still alive stopped fighting. They were all pacing back and forth near the Sea of Bones, abnormally silent. Gu Santong's eyes flickered as well. He said in a low voice, "I've read in the ancient books of my family that this phenomenon would only appear when a saint had fallen. Sage." Lu Mingyue cried out in surprise when she heard this. She had almost forgotten that she had been held captive by Lin Xian because the scene in front of her was too shocking. However, the Crimson Dragon added, "Not an ordinary saint, but a saint who has reached an extremely terrifying realm. The death of an ordinary saint would not be able to achieve such a terrifying effect. Could it be that there's a terrifying figure hidden in the White Bone Demon Palace?" Upon hearing this, Lin Xian and the others sucked in a breath of cold air. Could this White Bone Palace be related to the ceiling of the Tilted Moon Profound World? No matter how much everyone thought about it, this was the only conclusion they could come up with. However, Lin Xian suddenly frowned and looked behind him. In the next moment, an abnormally sorry figure was running towards them from the forest behind them. That figure was covered in blood, and his aura was extremely chaotic. When he saw Lin Xian, he was stunned. However, when he saw Lu Mingyue standing beside Lin Xian, he cried out in alarm. "Senior sister." Lu Mingyue was also surprised. She asked, "What happened to you? Why are you so heavily injured?" "Senior sister, Please take revenge for us." The injured youth knelt on the ground and crazily roared. Revenge? Lu Mingyue's lips twitched. She was already a captive, so how could she take revenge? However, she still asked in a low voice. "Who injured you? Didn't you establish an organization? Where are the others?" This youth covered in blood was also a disciple of the All Beginnings Holy Land. He hadn't been together with Lu Mingyue. Instead, he had established an organization by himself. Since he was able to establish his own organization and was also a disciple of the All Beginnings Holy Land, he definitely wasn't weak. But now, he was in an extremely sorry state. Hearing Lu Mingyue's words, that disciple clenched his teeth and said, "Our alliance was completely annihilated. It was the All-Cade Holy Sun. He easily annihilated our alliance. Not only that, he even killed Senior Brother Pei with a single palm strike." What? He killed Senior Brother Pei with a single palm strike? Lu Mingyue was astonished. She hadn't expected the All-Cade Holy Sun to be so terrifying. Senior Brother Pei was also a fellow disciple of the All-Cade Holy Sun. His cultivation was a peak 5-star king, and his strength had already reached the level of a 6-star king. She hadn't expected that such a terrifying person would be killed by the All-Cade Holy Sun with a single palm strike. It had to be said that this was truly unbelievable. On the side, Lin Xian and Gu Santong were also silent. They discovered that the All-Cade Holy Sun was even more terrifying than they had imagined. "Senior sister, you must take revenge for us." The kneeling youth quickly crawled forward, wanting to approach Lu Mingyue. Lu Mingyue also couldn't bear it and wanted to help him up. However, at this moment, Lin Xian frowned. His eyes shone brightly. Then, he grabbed Lu Mingyue and retreated. "What are you doing?" Lu Mingyue didn't understand what Lin Xian was trying to do. But in the next moment, she was stunned. This was because the body of the kneeling youth in front of her suddenly emitted a dazzling light, and then it exploded. This energy was too violent. It wasn't inferior to the self-destruction of an Earth-grade treasure. The terrifying energy turned into a raging tide, enveloping Lin Xian and the other two. At this moment, Gu Santong moved. He slid his finger, and suddenly, a huge black crack appeared in front of the three of them. It was like a gate to hell. Boom, boom, boom. The energy in front of them all surged into this crack. This process lasted for a long time. When the light in the sky disappeared, Gu Santong's body was covered in cold sweat. This kind of energy transfer consumed too much of his energy. Even he couldn't bear it. Therefore, when the energy in the sky disappeared, Gu Santong immediately swallowed a few recovery pills to recover his strength. Lin Xian's face was gloomy. It was too dangerous just now. He had almost been hit by the energy. If he had been hit, no matter how strong he was, he would have been seriously injured. This was because that kind of self-destruction was too terrifying. Lu Mingyue's face was pale. She gritted her teeth. Damn the All-Cade Holy Sun. He's so vicious. Chapter 1787. She wasn't a weakling. With her eyesight, she could naturally see that the wavering light Holy Sun had done something to the youth kneeling on the ground. No matter who that youth encountered, he would probably self-destruct. Who could a heavily injured All Beginnings Holy Land cultivator go to? He would definitely go to the All Beginnings Holy Land. If that was the case, many of the All Beginnings Holy Land's experts would be injured when that youth self-destructed. The wavering light Holy Sun was truly vicious. At the side, the Crimson Dragon also had a lingering fear. "Brat, you must be careful when you meet that wavering light Holy Sun in the future." The other party was truly too terrifying. The dark red Divine Dragon was right. This kind of powerful, decisive, and meticulous scheming person would definitely make everyone feel incomparably fearful. Even Lin Xian felt an enormous threat from this enemy that he had never seen before. The terrifying scene in front of them was still ongoing. The aura of the White Bone Palace was becoming more and more terrifying. The surrounding kings had no choice but to patiently wait for the final transformation to complete. After all, they didn't have anywhere to go. Moreover, they didn't feel at ease leaving this place. Therefore, the majority of them decided to set up camp here. Lin Xian, Gu Santong, and the Crimson Dragon discussed for a while before deciding to set up camp here as well. However, the place they chose was extremely remote. With Lin Xian and Gu Santong's strength, even if something really happened, they would be able to rush over immediately. Moreover, this would also prevent the other experts from looking at them with hostility. However, Lu Mingyue wasn't that lucky. She was really used as a maid. During these past few days, she had been helping Lin Xian with tea, water, barbecuing, and other miscellaneous tasks. In any case, she had done all the tasks that a servant would do. This made her feel as though she was going crazy. However, for the sake of survival, she endured it. Even Gu Santong was speechless. If someone were to see this scene, they would definitely be shocked. The proud daughter of the All Beginnings Holy Land had actually been reduced to a prisoner and a maid. This was simply too inconceivable. Lin Xian nodded in satisfaction. Not bad. It seems that you are not only talented in martial arts, but you are also very attentive as a maid. They waited like this for another 3 or 4 days. However, nothing happened to the White Bone Palace. It was still floating quietly in the sky. Lin Xian and Gu Santong waited silently, but there was someone who could not wait any longer. On this day, a few experts had a discussion and actually made a bold suggestion. They actually wanted to enter the Palace of White Bones and investigate what was going on. The reason for that was because many people discovered that the Palace of Bones seemed to be the tomb of some grand individual. For such a peerless figure, there might be divine treasures buried in the cemetery. Therefore, they wanted to investigate. It wasn't just 1 or 2 people who had this idea, because these days, no unusual changes had been discovered in the White Bone field. Coupled with their greed, they decided to take a risk. Immediately, a dozen or so king tiers responded and decided to follow him to investigate. However, the other warriors were still watching. Although the Bone Palace didn't mutate again, the aura it was emitting made their hair stand on end. In front of them, around 15 or 16 kings moved their bodies and rushed upwards at high speed. What are they trying to do? Seeing this, the Crimson Dragon's scalp went numb. Lin Xian and Gu Santong also saw this. Their expressions were serious. They didn't expect that someone would be so bold as to investigate the White Bone Palace above them. At this moment, all the surrounding kings looked up at the sky. In the sky, the dozen or so kings moved like lightning and arrived near the White Bone Palace in an instant. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The leader was a middle-aged man. He flew up into the sky and continued to fly forward. He was getting closer and closer to the White Bone Palace. Buzz. In the next moment, he stepped onto the White Bone construction site and stood on top of a giant white bone. He went up. Everyone held their breaths when they saw this scene. As for the middle-aged man, he was also very excited. He looked at the white bone gate in front of him, took a deep breath, and stepped out. Pong. In the next moment, a shocking change occurred. The middle-aged man in the sky aged rapidly in an instant. In the next moment, he turned into a pile of white bones. La la la. The bones all over his body fell to the ground. What? Seeing this, everyone's eyes widened. They couldn't believe that a 6-star king had turned into a pile of white bones in an instant. What kind of technique is this? That's too terrifying. Everyone was stunned, including Lin Xian. Gu Santong's expression was even more serious. Could it be the power of time? The power of time? What's that? Lin Xian frowned and asked. Space is king. Time is king. If someone can control space, there will naturally be someone who can control time. To age a king instantly and turn into a pile of white bones, this is definitely the power of time. What? This is the power of time. Hearing this, Lin Xian was also shocked. He naturally knew what this meant. Among the 3,000 great Daos, time could be said to be the most mysterious and eerie. He had never heard of anyone who could control the laws of time, because it was simply too heaven-defying. If one could control time, they could change time and space, and even become immortal. With a wave of their hand, they could turn everyone into white bones, and they could also bring people back to life. This kind of remarkable ability was shocking just hearing about it. However, since ancient times, very few people had been able to control this kind of power. As for whether those great emperors had mastered this kind of power, they did not know. But now, in this palace of bones, the power of time had appeared. It was simply too shocking. In the sky, after the middle-aged king had turned into a pile of white bones, the remaining kings saw this scene and felt their scalps go numb. They did not dare to approach the palace of bones again. Everyone moved and fled into the distance. However, at this moment, the palace of bones counterattacked. It seemed to have come alive, blooming with an incomparably pure white light on the city wall. Boom, boom, boom. More than a dozen streaks of light turned into divine rainbows, instantly piercing through all the kings in the sky. It was as easy as cutting through tofu. They've all been killed. When the surrounding warriors saw this scene, they were extremely shocked. Many of them felt lucky that they did not follow along. Otherwise, they would probably have been killed by now. However, this luck quickly disappeared. This was because a low voice suddenly came from the Palace of Bones. That voice was very strange, and they could not tell what it was. It sounded like the roar of a demon beast, but also like the sound of some kind of weapon. This voice carried a kind of supreme pressure. As soon as it appeared, all the surrounding kings trembled. Even Gu Santong had been affected. His face became abnormally pale. Chapter 1788. Lin Xian was also affected. However, the dragon's sword soul in his body suddenly spun rapidly, emitting a sharp aura. It enveloped Gu Santong, Lu Mingyue, and the Crimson Dragon. In an instant, the terrifying feeling disappeared. In another direction, Yi Wudao's body shone brightly. He was like a god of war. A golden lotus appeared behind him, resisting the unparalleled pressure. In the distance, there was also a man shining brightly. 108 halos appeared around his body, making him look like a Buddha. He was extremely terrifying. Other than that, the powerful beings were also resisting with all their might. However, they could not withstand it. Fortunately, the voice was very short. It disappeared as soon as it appeared. When the voice disappeared, everyone felt as if they had collapsed. Their bodies were drenched in sweat. Although the trembling voice had disappeared, the situation didn't improve. Because after the voice, the skeletons in the sea of bones below began to tremble. Ka. Countless bones quickly floated up and gathered together, forming many skeletal creatures that quickly recovered. Seeing this, everyone's scalps went numb. They kept retreating. Lin Xian and Gu Santong brought Lu Mingyue to a mountain peak and looked down. In the sea of bones below, countless skeletal creatures were resurrected, and they began to move. They formed a terrifying army of skeletons. What's going on? Are the gates of hell about to open? Everyone trembled. They did not understand. What kind of terrifying change was happening? Lin Xian's expression was also serious. This scene was too strange. It seemed that the Palace of Skeletons had a mysterious power that had revived the entire sea of bones. However, they did not know what would happen next. If the skeletons attacked them, they would be in trouble. Indeed, in the next moment, the army of skeletons below began to move in all directions. Some of them even attacked the human kings. They're really attacking. Lin Xian's mouth twitched. He led his people and retreated again. The surrounding kings also retreated. Although they were strong, they could not withstand the attack of so many skeletons. Moreover, there was a terrifying palace of skeletons above them. Who knew what would happen? Therefore, they did not dare to fight head-on. They retreated into the forest. Boom. At this moment, a king had actually made his move. An elder retreated instead of advancing. His terrifying palm slapped out, sweeping across the 9 heavens and 10 earths, directly shattering many of the skeletal creatures in front of him. What terrifying strength! Everyone felt their scalps go numb. Meanwhile, the old man raised his head to the sky and laughed heartily. Ha 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 ha, this lord's strength has recovered. In the next moment, a shocking aura erupted from his body. Terrifying energy shook heaven and earth. Almighty, this is the power of an almighty. Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect that the almighty's strength would recover at this time. Could it be because of the Palace of Bones above? No one knew the reason, but they knew that some people were in danger. Sure enough, After the mighty figures recovered their strength, they scanned the surroundings, locked onto their targets, and decisively attacked. Because of the previous battle, their strength had been suppressed, so some of their allies had been killed. Now that their strength had recovered, they naturally wanted to take revenge. Boom! One of the old men chuckled coldly and shot toward Leaf Doudenier, apparently hoping to take advantage of the chaos to kill him. Boom! That elder brandished his fist, illuminating the entire sky. The terrifying power shattered the void, incomparably terrifying. This was the power of an almighty, and it was fully displayed at this moment. In the crowd, Leaf Doudenier retreated, his entire body emitting a resplendent light. He turned into a bolt of lightning and instantly pulled away. "You're courting death." At this moment, the void fluctuated, and a figure appeared, quickly punching that terrifying fist. "You dare to attack my family? Looks like you don't want to live anymore." It was a middle-aged man with an ordinary face, but the aura on his body was incomparably violent. Almighty. This middle-aged man was also an almighty. Moreover, he was a warrior of the Yi family, and usually hid in the void to protect Leaf Doudenier. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't make a move unless it was a moment of life and death. Now that Leaf Doudenier was being chased by an almighty, he finally came out. The two almighties confronted each other, causing the sky to collapse and the earth to split. On the other side, a young man with 108 halos around his body flew through the void and into the distance. Behind him, a mysterious woman was also chasing. The mysterious woman's aura had also reached the almighty realm. Alcade Sage. He's being chased as well. Many warriors exclaimed, because they realized that the young man with the dazzling halos was the terrifying Alcade Sage. However, they didn't expect that he was also being chased by an almighty. In addition, a few other prodigies were also being chased. Oh no! When Lin Xian saw this scene, his face turned gloomy. He said to Gu Santong, "Brother Gu, let's split up first. I feel like someone is going to kill me." With that, Lin Xian grabbed Lu Mingyue and threw her into the black earth. Then, he used the heavenly dragon's 8 steps, turned into a stream of light, and quickly fled into the distance, because he felt that someone was watching him. Sure enough, in the next moment, an extremely terrifying palm descended from the sky, directly blasting the place where Lin Xian was originally standing, shattering the void. "Kid, do you think you can escape?" An extremely cold voice sounded. It was obvious that an almighty had his eyes on Lin Xian. "Brother Lin." When Gu Sanong saw this scene, his expression turned serious, and he wanted to go up and help. However, in the next moment, his body trembled, and a wave of fear rose from his heart. He felt that the aura that was spying on him before had appeared again. Moreover, it seemed to be much stronger than before. Could it be that the other party was also an almighty? Thinking of this, Gu Santong broke out in a cold sweat. He used the void technique, and his entire body instantly disappeared into the air. Boom, boom, boom. On the other side, Lin Xian was constantly shuttling through the forest. He didn't expect such a situation to happen. All the sealed almighties had recovered their strength. This wasn't good news for him. One had to know that he had previously killed many geniuses from the top sections. Now, those people would probably go crazy and chase after him. Sure enough, there was an almighty chasing after him now. Fortunately, he had mastered the heavenly dragon's 8 steps, and his speed was not inferior to the almighty. Otherwise, he would have been killed long ago. "Kid, let's see where you can run to." Behind him, the almighty's voice was cold. To be honest, he was extremely angry that he hadn't been able to catch up until now. In the next moment, he waved his sleeve, and the entire sky instantly turned black. A powerful cage sealed the surroundings. Lin Xian was also trapped here. "Kid, why don't you run?" In the void, a red figure appeared. Chapter 1789. The entire sky instantly turned dark as a powerful cage sealed the surroundings. Lin Xian was also trapped here. "Kid, why don't you run?" A red figure appeared in the void. It was a middle-aged man with a burly figure and red hair. He emitted a violent aura. His aura was as deep as the sea, like a god of war. It was so oppressive that it was difficult to breathe. However, Lin Xian's expression was cold. He was not affected by the aura. You can actually resist my aura? Kid, I see that you have a lot of treasures on you. The red-haired, middle-aged man sneered. But it doesn't matter. Once I kill you, everything on you will be mine. Humph. Lin Xian snorted. You're just taking advantage of your age. If we're in the same generation, I'll kill you like a dog. Indeed, Lin Xian was only in his 20s. The red-haired man was probably more than 800 years old. He might even be an old monster who had lived for thousands of years. Even if Lin Xian had the great dragon sword soul, it would be difficult to make up for the difference in age. It's useless for you to say so much. You can't run away today. The red-haired almighty sneered. If we're in the same level, I'll kill you like a dog. Lin Xian pointed his sword at the almighty. The red-haired almighty sneered. Kid, it's useless for you to say anything. As he spoke, he walked forward. One move. I only need one move to kill you. Even if you're a peerless genius, you're just an ant in my eyes. The red-haired almighty had a look of disdain on his face. Then, he slowly raised his palm and pressed it forward. Boom. The resplendent palm cut through the void. Light scattered in all directions and enveloped Lin Xian. Lin Xian's pupils constricted. He felt that the palm was too terrifying. It was far beyond his ability to resist. He did not dare to take it head-on. He used the heavenly dragon's 8 steps to the extreme and quickly retreated. Boom. The palm hit nothing, but the aftermath of the energy hit Lin Xian, causing him to vomit blood. He felt that his bones were about to fall apart. He actually dodged it? The red-haired almighty being squinted his eyes and stared at Lin Xian. Your footwork is very strange. It must be an extremely profound martial art. I didn't expect you to be able to master such a profound martial art. But it doesn't matter. When I catch you in a while, I naturally have a way to make you talk about this strange martial art. The red-haired almighty looked down at Lin Xian. He was like a cat toying with a mouse. He wasn't in a hurry to kill Lin Xian. Instead, he reached out his hand from time to make Lin Xian flee in a hurry. Ha 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 ha. Peerless geniuses and young geniuses are nothing in front of me. The red-haired mighty figure laughed disdainfully. On the other hand, Lin Xian's expression was abnormally cold. Although the previous palm strike did not hit him, the energy shockwave still caused him to suffer extremely serious internal injuries. All the bones in his body were about to fall apart, but he still kept moving. It couldn't be helped. This was the power of an almighty. It was simply too terrifying. He was still unable to resist at all. In front of him, the red-haired almighty seemed to have played enough. Therefore, he said coldly, Kid, it's over. As he spoke, he reached out his 5 fingers and grabbed at Lin Xian. It was like a 5-finger mountain, and a resplendent light illuminated the entire sky. This scene was simply too terrifying. The endless light was just one person's palm. It covered the sky and the earth. It was unimaginable. Was this the power of an almighty? It was simply too terrifying. Lin Xian's pupils constricted. He felt an unprecedented sense of danger. All the hair on his body stood on end. At this moment, he could no longer care about anything else. He had to use all his strength. A dragon-shaped sword shadow appeared in front of him, and Lin Xian held it tightly. Not only that, but his eyes also shone brightly, and mysterious Dao patterns appeared. At this moment, Lin Xian sent out the great dragon sword soul and used his heavenly secret divine ability to find the flaw in the 5-finger mountain. Finally, he found it. His entire body carried the dragon-shaped sword shadow and turned into a sharp ray of light, ruthlessly stabbing at the flaw. Sword light flashed as Lin Xian broke out of the encirclement, narrowly avoiding the palm strike. However, he still spat out a mouthful of blood. What? He actually dodged it. The red-haired almighty was extremely surprised. This time, he had planned to end the battle. However, he did not expect the other party to be able to dodge it. He had to admit that it was simply too surprising. One had to know that there was a world of difference between an almighty and an almighty. It could be said to be an insurmountable gap. It was impossible to cross realms to fight. However, the young man in front of him was actually able to dodge his attack. It was simply too surprising. Moreover, the other party was even able to find his flaw, which shocked him even more. That pair of eyes? In the next moment, when the red-haired Almighty saw Lin Xian's golden eyes, he was completely stunned. Could it be the legendary heavenly secret divine eyes? The red-haired Almighty was extremely shocked. Then, he laughed wildly. Ha 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 ha, I didn't expect to encounter the heavenly secret divine eyes here. It seems that even the heavens are helping me. Kid, I didn't expect you to be a member of the heavenly secret tribe and have successfully activated the heavenly secret divine eyes. If that's the case, I can't let you live. After you die, I'll put your eyes to good use. With them, I might be able to improve further and even become a sage. The red-haired Almighty was too excited. One had to know that the heavenly secret divine eyes were extremely mysterious and legendary. Moreover, the reason why the wavering light sacred land was angry and issued a kill order was related to the heavenly secret divine eyes. However, he did not expect that this thing would be discovered by him. Moreover, it was in the hands of a mere king. This way, he could effortlessly obtain the heavenly secret divine eyes. Thinking of this, he laughed loudly towards the sky. On the other side, Lin Xian's face darkened. He had already used his strongest combat strength and used the heavenly secret divine eyes to find a flaw. However, so far, he could only protect himself. It was impossible for him to kill his opponent. However, he would not give up resisting. At most, he would die together with his opponent. He would not let his opponent get away with it. Thinking of this, Lin Xian snorted coldly. The great dragon sword soul in his body quickly circulated, causing his aura to become even sharper. It was like a peerless divine sword. The golden light in his eyes was also extremely bright. Mysterious runes flickered and were extremely deep. It was like a golden starry sky. Seeing Lin Xian's reaction, the red-haired Almighty sneered. What, you still want to resist? You're overestimating yourself. The difference between us is like a firefly against the sun. You can't do anything in front of me. The red-haired Almighty sneered and strode towards Lin Xian. With every step he took, the aura on his body became stronger. It was like an ancient mountain that suppressed people to the point of suffocation. In fact, the entire void began to tremble rapidly. Chapter 1790. The critical moment was about to arrive. However, at this moment, the aura of the red-haired mighty figure changed. It no longer became extremely powerful. Instead, it retreated quickly like the tide. What's going on? Lin Xian was stunned. The red-haired mighty figure was also stunned. He felt the energy in his body rapidly depleting. No, impossible. My power, where's my power? The red-haired mighty figure roared crazily. He realized that this scene was extremely familiar because it had happened once when he had just arrived at the primeval forest. The laws of heaven and earth here had sealed him, causing his strength to fall below that of a mighty figure. Now, the same thing was happening again. His power was about to be suppressed again. Sensing this scene, the red-haired mighty figure's face turned green. He did not expect such a thing to happen at the most critical moment. Damn it, I don't believe it. The red-haired mighty figure resisted frantically, but that strange energy sealed him. He realized that he could not control the energy in his body at all. Therefore, in the next moment, he gave up resisting and pounced at Lin Xian like a madman. He wanted to kill his opponent before his power was completely sealed. In this way, the heavenly secret divine eyes would still be his. Lin Xian snorted coldly as his body swayed rapidly. He naturally noticed the abnormality. He knew that it was possible that the other party had been sealed by the laws here again. Thinking of this, he no longer hesitated and dodged quickly. At least before the other party was sealed, he could not be caught by the other party. Damn brat! Stop right there. The red-haired mighty figure roared crazily. He realized that the other party was too fast, and he could not catch him at all. And the energy in his body was rapidly depleting. In the next moment, a low sound came from his body, and his power finally fell below that of a mighty figure. He was sealed again. Sensing this scene, the red-haired mighty figure's expression was extremely ferocious. He roared angrily and decisively gave up on Lin Xian and fled into the distance. The red-haired mighty figure's cultivation was suppressed again, so he did not dare to fight anymore. He fled into the distance like a madman. Trying to leave? Lin Xian snorted coldly. His body was like lightning as he instantly chased after him. Previously, the other party wanted to flaunt his prowess and kill him. How could he let him go now? Swallowing the best medicinal pill in his hand, Lin Xian madly circulated the longevity secret art, absorbing the surrounding spiritual energy to quickly heal his injuries. The next moment, he appeared in front of the red-haired mighty figure. Scram! The red-haired expert roared in rage and punched out. The terrifying red fist was extremely sharp, and there was a red aura around it. It was as if a fire god had awakened and was extremely terrifying. It blotted out the sky and covered the earth as it ruthlessly blasted towards Lin Xian. However, Lin Xian's lips curled into a cold smile. With his soul force, he could clearly sense that the current attack was much weaker than before. In other words, the other party had really been sealed. He wasn't afraid of a sealed almighty. He didn't even need to dodge. Boom! Lin Xian executed the world-destroying Black Dragon Fist and punched out. The terrifying fist was like a huge mountain descending from the sky. What followed was a series of dragon roars. Boom! The two collided, and the terrifying energy swept out in all directions like a tsunami, blasting out tens of thousands of ripples in the void. Boom! The red-haired mighty figure took 3 steps back. His face was extremely pale and shocked. That was because he realized that he couldn't hurt the other party anymore. Lin Xian sneered. What? You want to leave now? Weren't you very arrogant before? You want to kill me in the palm of your hand? Now, you can try to kill me. He was really furious. Previously, the other party took advantage of his seniority and relied on his hundreds of years of cultivation to forcefully kill him. If he didn't have many secret techniques in his hands, he might have been killed long ago. How could Lin Xian let such a deep hatred go? Kid, get out of my way. To tell you the truth, even if my cultivation is suppressed, I'm still a mighty figure. I'm still not someone you can fight against. If you know what's good for you, get out of my way and I can spare your life. Otherwise, today will be the day you die. The red-haired mighty figure gritted his teeth, and his voice was unusually cold. You still dare to be arrogant now? Do you really think you're still the mighty figure from before? Lin Xian sneered, unmoved. The golden light in his eyes flickered and emitted a strange energy. I won't bully you. Let's fight to the death. You want to fight to the death with me? You're not worthy at all. The red-haired mighty figure snorted and still wanted to escape. Why? You don't dare. Lin Xian sneered. Do you think someone like you is worthy of being a mighty figure? If you don't even dare to fight with me, there's no point in living like you. What an embarrassment to a mighty figure. Kid, you're courting death. The red-haired mighty figure's face was gloomy. As a mighty figure, his status was extremely noble. When had he ever been looked down upon like this? Now, a young kid dares to look down on me? This is unforgivable. Since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish. I want you to know that a mighty figure will always be a mighty figure. Even if it's sealed, it's not something ants like you can resist. After saying that, the red-haired mighty figure attacked mercilessly. A gigantic fiery red palm appeared in the sky and grabbed at Lin Xian from all directions. This red palm was hundreds of feet long and was like a flaming mountain. Chapter 1791. As a mighty figure, he had not been injured for many years, let alone by a brat. If word got out, it would definitely shock the world. So what if I hurt you? Lin Xian snorted. Not only will I hurt you, but I'll also kill you. Kill me? Just you? You're overestimating yourself. Don't think that you can be so arrogant just because you can hurt me. I didn't even use my full strength just now. Enough. Don't be so stubborn. Do you still think you're that high and mighty figure from before? Lin Xian held the killing sword in his hand and said coldly, Do you think you can mercilessly kill the younger generation just because you've cultivated for a long time and are powerful? Your way of doing things is despicable. Now, I'll enforce justice on behalf of the heavens and get rid of a scourge like you. Lin Xian shouted coldly as the aura on his body became even more powerful. You're courting death. It seems that if I don't show you my true strength, you won't know how powerful I am. The red-haired mighty figure gritted his teeth. In his opinion, even if he was sealed, it was not impossible for him to kill his opponent with his methods and experience. He just needed to spend a little more effort. Previously, he did not want to waste his energy, but now it seemed that he had no choice but to kill his opponent. Brat, I originally wanted to let you go, but since you're courting death, don't blame me for it. The red-haired mighty figure once again revealed a sinister smile. The aura in his body surged quickly and covered the entire sky. This time, Lin Xian did not say anything and stabbed out with the 9 darkness demonic sword. This sword was extremely terrifying. It was like a long black dragon running wildly in the sky. Seeing this sword, the red-haired mighty figure was shocked. He did not expect his opponent's sword technique to be so powerful. This sword was really beyond his expectations. In the next moment, he roared angrily and a terrifying power surged in his body. He blasted forward in an attempt to resist this sword. However, he still underestimated this sword. Poof! The sword flashed and a shocking collision sounded, shaking the surroundings. Then, blood splattered everywhere and a shrill cry was heard, causing the surrounding beasts to tremble. A hole appeared in the red-haired Almighty's attack. Not only that, his body was pierced through by the 9 netherworld demon sword, nailing him in the air. This scene was simply too terrifying. A supreme being had actually been injured by a 4-star king, and he was severely injured at that. Perhaps he had never imagined such a scene even in his dreams. Although the red-haired mighty being's cultivation had been suppressed and had fallen to the mighty being realm, not everyone could fight against him. It could even be said that no one below the Almighties was a match for them. However, the current situation was beyond the red-haired Almighty's expectations. He did not expect that the other party would be able to heavily injure him with a single strike. The red-haired mighty figure roared into the sky with a ferocious expression. The energy in his body exploded, and the light shone like a red sun. In the next moment, a terrifying force collided with the 9 darkness demonic sword, and the red-haired mighty figure quickly retreated. Brat, you dare to hurt me? I'm going to kill you. The red-haired Almighty roared madly and quickly used a secret technique to temporarily seal the wound so that it would stop bleeding. However, his face was abnormally pale. That sword strike just now had caused him to suffer heavy injuries. However, he couldn't care less about that now. He swore that he had to kill Lin Fan. Otherwise, if Lin Fan continued to grow, he would definitely become a terrifying, peerless powerhouse in the future. He wouldn't allow such a threat to exist in this world. In the next moment, a terrifying red light surged out from his body, covering the sky and earth, instantly enveloping the entire space. The sky and earth were filled with terrifying red light, emitting a terrifying aura. As for the red-haired mighty figure, he was like a god fiend, and his entire body was extremely powerful. Even the pressure of an almighty reappeared on his body. Whoosh! Like metal colliding and mercury flowing, a long red chain appeared on the arm of the red-haired mighty figure. It surged rapidly and swept forward. The red chain was incomparably scarlet, and it carried a monstrous killing intent and a terrifying aura. Needless to say, this was an earth-grade treasure with boundless power. Scarlet Flame Chain. A low voice came from the mouth of the red-haired mighty figure. The terrifying chain was like a maggot attached to a bone, instantly wrapping around Lin Xian as if it was going to refine him. A terrifying light soared into the sky, and terrifying cracks appeared in the space as if nothing could stop the scarlet flame chain. At this moment, the surrounding red light surged, and a sinister and terrifying voice appeared as if it was Azura from hell. Humph! Apocalyptic Black Dragon Fist. Break! Lin Xian, on the other hand, was extremely domineering. His eyes sparkled as he quickly searched for an opening. At the same time, the apocalyptic black dragon fist was unleashed. With a punch, terrifying energy surged and instantly hit the flaw, shattering the red light that filled the sky. The scarlet flame chain flew out like a long snake. Not only that, but the power of the punch also rushed toward the red-haired mighty figure. Boom! The red-haired mighty figure vomited blood again. His chest caved in, and more than half of the bones in his body were broken. No, can. He spat out a few words with difficulty because he couldn't believe it. How could the other party be so powerful? He was a mighty figure. Even if he was sealed, he was still a mighty figure. Even a 6-star king was like an ant in his hands. However, the young man in front of him only had the cultivation of a 4-star king, but his combat strength was even more powerful than his sealed self. He couldn't believe it. Damn, brat, go to hell. As a mighty figure, he couldn't only have these ultimate moves. Therefore, he waved his sleeve, and a dark red pagoda appeared in the void. Powerful fluctuations suppressed the void, and terrifying energy surged out. The red-haired mighty figure used all his strength to push the dark red pagoda forward. He wanted to kill Lin Xian. Boom, boom, boom. The dark red pagoda was extremely terrifying, and it was also an Earth-grade treasure. Its body emitted light, and a red aura hung down. It intertwined to form a red lightning bolt that quickly bombarded. Lightning surged like a lightning tribulation. The moment it appeared, it shattered everything and completely enveloped Lin Xian. Haha, brat, die. The red-haired man laughed sinisterly. The red pagoda was one of his trump cards. Once he used it, it was extremely terrifying. He believed that the other party was a 4-star king. No matter how powerful his attack was, his defense was not strong enough to block his attack. However, Lin Xian was unusually calm amidst the red lightning that filled the sky. Beside him, the dragon sword domain rose and fell, blocking all the lightning. Not only that, Lin Xian even stretched out his left hand, and countless sword chi condensed to form a dragon's head. Roar! The dragon's head roared into the sky, and it opened its bloody mouth, forming a powerful force. The red lightning that filled the sky seemed to be attracted by something and crazily gathered toward the dragon's head in Lin Xian's hand. This scene was like a river flowing into the sea. It was shocking. Chapter 1792. Suddenly, the red lightning that filled the sky disappeared, and a dark red ball of lightning was formed in Lin Xian's palm. Boom! Lin Xian waved his arm and threw the dark red ball of lightning at the red pagoda. The collision of the two made a deafening sound. The powerful energy blasted in all directions, and the red pagoda was on the verge of collapse. There were even cracks on it. The red-haired cultivator vomited blood again, and the light on his body dimmed. He struggled intensely, his whole body trembling. Damn it, who are you? The red-haired cultivator's voice trembled. He couldn't believe that a 4-star cultivator could be so powerful. He even suspected that the other party was also a cultivator who had hidden his identity. My name is Lin Xian. Lin Xian's voice was firm, and his face was cold. He couldn't let the other party go, so it didn't matter even if he told the other party his name. Lin Xian? Lin Xian. The red-haired cultivator muttered with a confused expression. He knew many young elites in Eastern Wilderness, but he didn't know anyone called Lin Xian. He didn't even know who the other party was or which sect he was from, but the other party's power was too terrifying. He couldn't even withstand it. All right, since you know my name, you can go to hell, Lin Xian said coldly as he raised the 9-darkness demonic sword in his hand. No. Seeing this, the red-haired cultivator roared crazily, and despair appeared on his face. At this moment, he couldn't care about anything else. He burned his blood and spiritual power to launch a shocking attack, trying to resist and escape. However, a dragon-shaped sword shadow appeared in front of Lin Xian and merged with the 9-darkness demonic sword. Then, he stabbed with the sword. The black sword radiance was like heavenly thunder, descending rapidly. The red pagoda and red flame chains were all sent flying. Nothing could stop it at this moment. Poof! The sword was out, and the cultivator was dead. The red-haired cultivator fell to the ground, blood flowing out, and his eyes dimmed. If someone was here and saw this scene, they would be shocked and go crazy. This was because Lin Xian had killed a mighty figure. Although he was a sealed almighty, he was still an almighty. Although this kind of sealed almighty was not as strong as before, it was still not something that anyone could contend against. But now, he was actually killed by someone. It had to be said that it was really too shocking. Lin Xian was expressionless. The other party had only himself to blame for this. He did not have any enmity with the other party, but the other party wanted to make a move on him out of greed. In the end, this was the result. After taking a deep breath, Lin Xian waved his sleeve and put away the dark red pagoda, the scarlet flame chain, and the man's ring of holding. After killing the red-haired mighty figure, Lin Xian released Lu Mingyue. And now, he was actually killed by someone. Damn it, who did it? Could it be that there's already chaos among the mighty figures? The king's expressions were ugly. In the previous battles, the mighty figures usually did not participate, so those who died were ordinary kings. As for those almighties, they hadn't fallen yet. But now, a mighty figure had died. In their opinion, ordinary kings could not kill a mighty figure at all. Only a mighty figure could kill the mighty figure. Hearing that, the surrounding kings felt their scalps go numb. Their eyes were filled with fear. They quickly turned around and left this place. They could not stay here any longer because they guessed that there might be a mighty figure or some other terrifying figure hiding nearby. They did not dare to stay here at all because they would not be able to fight back if they encountered the mighty figure. Everyone was running for their lives. A few top prodigies were being chased by the mighty figure, while the ordinary kings were running away crazily. That was because the skeleton army of the Sea of Bones was quickly charging towards them. However, those kings did not run for long before they ran back with ugly expressions. Even their faces were green. That was because they realized that the monsters in the forest had become abnormally violent at this moment. Not only that, they also realized that the auras of those kings had changed. They were even more powerful than before. Among them, a few unlucky kings had arrived near the nest of a ferocious beast. Roar! In the next moment, an earth-shattering sound came from the valley. A terrifying aura swept out in all directions. Chapter 1793. That aura caused the kings to tremble. Even their spiritual energy couldn't circulate smoothly. Damn it, what kind of energy is that? It's too scary. The kings felt their scalps go numb. They realized that this aura had surpassed that of an almighty and had reached an unbelievable level. What? That's six-armed divine ape. The kings exclaimed as they looked into the distance. Sure enough, in the valley, a huge figure rushed out. Its body was shining with golden light, like a golden god of war. On its body, 6 arms were waving non-stop. Terrifying energy rushed into the sky, easily tearing the void apart. Not only that, a pair of golden wings grew out of the 6-armed divine ape's back. The wings spread out and shone with divine light, like 2 golden heavenly blades. Boom! The golden wings flapped and carried the huge body into the sky. The surrounding air turned into a golden whirlwind under the golden wings, sweeping in all directions. One of the kings did not dodge and was surrounded by the golden whirlwind, torn into pieces. Terrifying, too terrifying. The remaining kings felt their scalps go numb as they fled crazily. They realized that the 6-armed divine ape's strength had increased by a lot. Could it be that the 6-armed divine ape had been sealed before? Thinking of this, they did not dare to believe it. If that was the case, then it was too scary. Just how terrifying was the 6-armed divine ape? Before they could react, furious roars rang out from other places as well. In the entire primitive forest, all the remaining kings felt it. They realized that the powerful monster kings were displaying heaven-defying strength. Their terrifying auras soared into the sky and swept through the entire forest. Not good. These monster kings are going to go berserk. In the forest, the Crimson Dragon's expression was also grave. Lin Xian, who was beside him, frowned. They realized that the powerful demon kings from before were even stronger than before. Obviously, They guessed that these monster kings had been sealed before, just like humans. Now that the white bone demon palace had appeared, the seal on their bodies had been removed, and their original strength had been revealed. What was this white bone demon palace? And what was going on with this primitive forest? Why were there so many powerful monster kings here? Lin Xian simply couldn't understand. Inside this oblique moon profound world, there was something strange about it. However, now wasn't the time to think about these things. They discovered that in the forest, countless demon kings were moving towards the white bone devil hall. That aura formed a storm, forcing everyone to flee again. They realized that there was no way to escape. They were forced to return to the Bone Sea. The current situation was extremely dangerous for them. There was a bone army in front of them. It was extremely terrifying. Furthermore, the berserk demon king behind them was even more terrifying. For a moment, Lin Xian and the others were caught in a dilemma. However, Lin Xian quickly made up his mind to return to the Bone Sea. Firstly, those demon kings were truly too powerful, and they were utterly unable to resist them. In comparison, although the skeleton army was large in number, their individual combat strength was not very strong. In comparison, it was better to return to the Bone Sea. Furthermore, he had a feeling that these monster kings had become stronger because of the White Bone Palace. Moreover, he also wanted to see what kind of changes had happened to the White Bone Palace. Therefore, he flew back in the direction of the Palace of Bones. The other kings did the same. However, they did not return on their own accord. Instead, they were chased back by the monster kings. That was because the auras of these monster kings were simply too terrifying. There were even a few that had surpassed the power of a mighty figure. Among them, the six-armed divine ape was incomparably valiant. It was like a golden god of war. Apart from that, there was also a huge divine crocodile. It was 100 feet long, and its entire body was shining with light. On the other side, there was a 9-headed lion. It opened its ferocious mouth as if it could swallow the entire sky. Without exception, these powerful monster kings all flew towards the White Bone Palace. The heavens are too terrifying. Damn it, what's happening? Is the world going to be destroyed? These monster kings are too terrifying. Could it be that they have reached the level of a peerless mighty figure? The kings felt their scalps go numb as they quickly fled. Soon, these monster kings and the Bone Army met, and a shocking battle broke out between the two. The scene was too terrifying. The six-armed divine ape roared as it waved its 6 palms. It was like 6 golden mountains that continuously smashed down. Every strike could shatter a large portion of the Bone Army. Cracks appeared in the sky, and there were even 6 huge black holes in the void. On the other side, the divine crocodile that was 100 feet long swept its huge tail. It was as sharp as a heavenly blade, and a large portion of the Bone Army was cut in half. The 9-headed lion was even more ferocious. Its 9 heads spat out wind, fire, and thunder. All kinds of terrifying attacks turned into a frenzy of energy that swept in all directions. Many of the Bone Army were annihilated in an instant. However, more and more bone creatures crawled out from the ground, covering the sky and earth. They were densely packed and crazily counterattacking. This scene was too shocking. It was as if an ancient war had appeared in front of everyone. Some of the kings could not dodge in time and were blasted by the energy, turning into a bloody mist. The remaining people fled as if they had gone mad. They wanted to get away from this terrifying scene. Gradually, these powerful monster kings came near the Sea of Bones. They looked at the White Bone Palace in the sky and roared nonstop. Roar! Roar! Their roars were like thunder, tearing through the void, causing everyone to tremble and Shuang'er to bleed. Lin Xian had already thrown Lu Mingyue into the black earth again. Her magic power was sealed, and she could not use any energy at all. She could not fight against the scene here. He did not want to take her life for the time being, so he threw her into the black earth. As for him, he joined hands with the Crimson Dragon to create a light screen to defend against the terrifying energy frenzy and the deafening roars. However, Lin Xian was even more puzzled by the scene in front of him. What was going on? Why were these monster kings attacking the White Bone Palace? Could it be that there was really a treasure inside? In front, the monster kings were crazily attacking the white bone palace. The six-armed godly ape kept waving its 6 arms, forming a golden hurricane that swept towards the white bone palace in the sky. It was like countless golden demonic clouds were rushing forward. On the other side, the divine crocodile opened its bloody mouth and spat out 5-colored lightning. The sky surged and the thunder rumbled. A terrifying energy rushed forward. The 9-headed lion's 9 heads emitted a terrifying energy that turned into an energy storm and blasted towards the white bone palace. Other than these 3 powerful monster kings, there were more than 10 terrifying monster kings. They roared and launched powerful attacks. Chapter 1794. Other than these 3 powerful demon kings, there were more than 10 other terrifying demon beasts. They roared and attacked fiercely. In an instant, the entire void boiled and was drowned by this violent energy. In front of them, the white bone palace was filled with an ancient aura. At this moment, demonic runes appeared under the huge white bone palace. Then, a white light shone and spread in all directions. The terrifying energy that filled the sky was completely suppressed by this white light. Seeing this, Lin Xian and the others' pupils shrank. They could not believe that this white bone palace was too terrifying. This was because these demon kings had surpassed the almighty level and were extremely powerful. With so many demon kings attacking together, they could overturn the sky and earth, but they could not shake the white bone palace. What was this white bone palace? Was it really the tomb of a saint? The 6-armed godly ape, the crocodile god, and the other demon kings roared angrily when they saw that their attacks were ineffective. However, they seemed to be afraid and did not dare to get too close to the white bone palace. It was as if there was something in the white bone palace that was threatening them. However, their attacks did not stop. Intense collisions erupted in the sky, and terrifying energy swept in all directions. The ones who suffered the most were the human kings. Although they were extremely powerful, they were as weak as ants in front of the terrifying demon kings in the white bone palace. Many kings were even hit by the energy waves and exploded. Even more warriors were red in the face as they resisted with all their might. At this moment, the few kings who were secretly adding fuel to the fire had ugly expressions on their faces. If they had not attacked, there would not have been so much blood and the sea of bones would not have changed. However, it was all too late. There was no point in regretting it. On Lin Xian's side, he also propped up the dragon sword domain to resist. He was in a relatively good situation. Although it was dangerous, all the energy waves were cut apart by his sword chi. None of them reached him. However, Lin Xian's expression was extremely solemn. This was because they could not go on like this. Brother Lin. The void rippled and Gu Santong appeared in front of Lin Xian. His face was pale and he was injured. After Lin Xian left, he was targeted by a mysterious expert. The other party seemed to want to capture him. Fortunately, he was skilled in spatial techniques and could escape. Later on, the demon kings exploded, forcing the mysterious expert to retreat. It could be said that Gu Santong's experience was even more dangerous than Lin Xian's. Now, the two of them worked together to resist the attacks from the surroundings and achieved obvious results. The other kings also began to resist. But at this moment, the situation changed again. In the sky, the terrifying 6-armed godly ape suddenly dived down and landed on the ground. The golden eyes scanned the surroundings before a cold voice resounded, "Humans, enter the ancient city." This voice was like a clap of thunder, reverberating in the sky. What? Enter the ancient city? Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Then, their faces turned ugly. There was a city nearby, and that was the White Bone Palace. Could it be that they had entered? Are you kidding me? Isn't that courting death? Sure enough, someone immediately counterattacked. However, the answer was a golden palm. 3 of the kings were instantly smashed into a bloody mist. They could not resist at all. Seeing this, everyone's scalps went numb. It was too terrifying. In front of the golden ape, even the almighties were not strong enough. You can choose to resist, but there is only one outcome. You will be killed. Or you can enter the ancient city obediently. If you are lucky, you may live. Lucky? What's so lucky about that? One of the elders gritted his teeth and roared. Once they stepped into the palace of bones, they would be turned into a pile of bones. Don't worry, that won't happen now. Go in. The cold voice sounded again. Then, flames appeared on the golden ape's body and spread in all directions. If these humans tried to escape, the godly ape would attack mercilessly. Kid, what do we do? Do you want to break out of the encirclement? The dark red divine dragon asked through voice transmission. Lin Xian shook his head slightly. He had thought of this idea as well. However, it seemed to him that it was simply too dangerous. The golden ape in front of him was too terrifying. It was definitely stronger than the ordinary almighties. Its strength was unimaginable. Moreover, there were so many monster kings around. Where could he escape to? He might be killed in the end. Why not take the risk and enter the Palace of Bones? Judging from the situation, the monster kings wanted them to enter the Palace of Bones. They did not know what would happen after they entered. However, it would not be like the last time. They would not be turned into a pile of bones before even entering the Palace of Bones. The others looked pale. It seemed that they had no choice but to go in. Therefore, someone gritted his teeth and rushed into the sky. Soon, they arrived above the Palace of Bones. Everyone held their breaths. However, they did not turn into bones like the last time. Instead, the godly ape entered the Palace of Bones directly. It's really possible. Seeing this, everyone was shocked. They felt that this might be an opportunity. After all, they might be killed if they stayed here. They might as well go in and take the risk. Now, they knew that the Palace of Bones was not ordinary. There might be great opportunities inside. Thinking of this, they did not hesitate and rushed into the sky. Let's go. Lin Xian and Gu Santong looked at each other. Then, the three of them followed the crowd into the Palace of Bones. Buzz. Just as they stepped into the Palace of Bones, a strange energy came out and forced Lu Mingyue out of the black earth. She could not stay any longer. What's going on? As soon as Lu Mingyue came out, she saw the giant bone city not far in front of her. She was so scared that her face turned pale. She looked at Lin Xian and gritted her teeth. Damn you! Are you crazy? How dare you come here? If you want to turn into a pile of bones, I won't stop you. But don't stop me. To be honest, she was really scared. The scene of the Monster Kings being killed by the Palace of Bones was still deeply imprinted in her mind. Now that Lin Xian had brought her to the Palace of Bones, how could she not be scared? However, Lin Xian said coldly, "Shut up. If you want to die, you can go down. I won't stop you. But if you want to live, you have to stay by my side obediently. Of course, as a servant, you have to have the consciousness of a servant. Otherwise, don't expect me to save you." Chapter 1795. Lin Xian's voice was cold. He didn't want to kill Lu Mingyue, because holding a person who was qualified to become the saintess of all beginnings was more valuable than killing her. Lu Mingyue looked around and found that all the kings had come to the front of the giant bone city. She immediately understood. These people had no choice but to enter the giant bone city. But if they went down now, they might not survive. Not to mention that her power was sealed now. Even if she was at her peak, she couldn't withstand a blow from the six-armed ape. Seeing that she didn't speak, Lin Xian waved his hand and a sword light wrapped around Lu Mingyue. I don't know why, but you can't hide now and can only follow me. Then follow me closely and don't get lost. This sword light can protect you. At the same time, Lin Xian also unlocked some of her seals, giving her some power. But it was impossible for her to escape. Don't think about running away, or you'll end up miserable. Lin Xian warned again. Lu Mingyue also knew the current situation. She couldn't wait to follow Lin Xian. Because Lin Xian was powerful and had the combination of Gu Sanong and the Crimson Dragon, even in danger, her survival rate was greatly increased. She wouldn't leave now. In the next moment, Lin Xian and the others stepped into the Palace of Bones. The giant bone city was extremely terrifying and emitted a monstrous aura. Two tall white bone doors were completely opened, revealing the scene inside. Not far in front, there were figures wearing ancient battle robes. Each of them had great spiritual power. However, there was no vitality in them. Lin Xian and the others knew that these were the funerary objects of some of the most powerful figures in the world. They glanced around and found that there were many of these burial objects. If they were resurrected, they might completely overturn this world. But fortunately, when they entered, the terrifying figures in front of them didn't wake up. They stood there like statues. When they passed by, their bodies began to tremble. They could sense a terrifying aura emanating from those figures. It was like a divine sword, extremely fierce. At this moment, the demon kings in the sky began to attack again. Streaks of sharp energy slammed into the white bone city. There were even a few terrifying beams of light that blasted towards the white bone door. In the blink of an eye, it passed through the two gates and blasted into the city of bones. Not good. Many kings were alarmed. They realized that the terrifying beams of light would probably affect them. Therefore, in the next moment, these people quickly ran inside. The entire white bone city began to emit a terrifying light. Then, those statue-like figures actually came to life. Ka. The kings who had been buried with Qin Wentian began to emit their auras, and their bodies began to move like wooden puppets. Although it was a little stiff, it carried a terrifying power with it. Boom, boom. They were rapidly attacking outside. Terrifying saber lights, palm shadows, and sword chi streaked across the sky, fighting against the demon kings outside. He's revived. When everyone saw this scene, their scalps went numb. Lin Xian also frowned. This scene was too strange. Could it be that these people didn't die? Or were they already dead, and now they're revived in some way? He couldn't figure it out, but he realized that this white bone city was full of mysteries. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, more than 10 attacks landed near them and then exploded. Terrifying energy swept towards them. Lin Xian and the others quickly retreated. They knew that it was no longer safe to go out from the entrance. They had to go inside. Moreover, some of the kings had already done so. They realized that the items buried with Qin Wentian wouldn't attack them for the time being. Therefore, they became bolder and ran into the white bone city. Let's go too, Lin Xian said in a low voice. Then, he, Gu Santong, the Crimson Dragon, and Lu Mingyue followed the others into the city. This was because it was too dangerous. They could be affected by the shockwaves of the energy at any time. The group of people walked in and realized that the inside of the white bone city was no different from an ordinary city. Buildings and streets crisscrossed the area. However, the buildings here were more ancient and full of the style of the Antiquity Age. Moreover, there was dust and broken walls everywhere. There were even many spider webs. It was obvious that no one had been here for countless years. Even though Lin Xian and the other kings were walking on the streets, they still felt that the entire city was filled with a strong sense of death. It was like a dead city. The terrifying attacks outside were still going on. It seemed like those kings of monsters were trying to destroy the White Bone City. However, the White Bone City was too terrifying. It was too strange. It was not damaged at all. In fact, it didn't even shake. If they hadn't heard the deafening sounds and the sky full of light outside, they would have thought that they were dreaming. Whoosh! Suddenly, the sky above them darkened. It was as if a dark cloud had covered the sky. In the next moment, everyone looked up. They saw a yellow figure, like a golden mountain, appear above them. It formed a huge projection. The six-armed godly ape. Everyone cried out in surprise when they saw this. They didn't expect the six-armed godly ape to appear above the White Bone City. What was it trying to do? Boom. Yes, it was indeed the six-armed godly ape. As soon as it appeared, it waved its 6 arms and formed 6 huge golden light pillars. Then, it shot downward. Boom, boom, boom. This time, the light pillars finally reached the interior of the White Bone City. The terrifying light pillars hit the interior of the White Bone City, causing the entire city to tremble. Even the ground cracked and the surrounding buildings were pierced through. Oh no! At this moment, the surviving kings felt their scalps go numb. They didn't gather together anymore. Instead, they fled in all directions. Everyone wanted to reach a safe place to escape this disaster. Lin Xian's expression was cold. He used the dragon sword realm to envelop everyone. Then, he turned into an aurora and rushed into the distance. In front of him was a disciple of the Five Elements sect. When he saw Lin Xian, he immediately felt a cold wind, because Lin Xian and the Five Elements sect had a feud. However, now was not the time for revenge. Boy, I saw this place. Hurry up and get out of here. After saying that, the disciple of the Five Elements sect snorted and entered an ancient house in front of him. That ancient house was already very dilapidated. It was covered in dust and cobwebs. However, at this moment, it had become a safe shelter. That was because everyone realized that the older the house, the less likely it was to be damaged by this kind of attack. Perhaps there was a mysterious force protecting these ancient houses. Chapter 1796. They realized that the older the house, the more resistant it was to such attacks. Perhaps there was some mysterious power protecting these ancient houses. That Five Elements sect's disciple quickly entered the ancient house in front of him. Moreover, he released a ray of Five Elements power and sealed the door. It seemed that he did not want Lin Xian and the rest to enter. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes when he saw this. Lu Mingyue said anxiously, "What should we do? Should we force our way in? We have more people anyway." Gu Sanong shook his head and said, "There is no need to waste time fighting. There are many houses around here. We can look for others." "Let's go in another direction," Lin Xian said. He did not want to fight now. The appearance of the giant bone city and the appearance of the demon king were all caused by the blood that was spilled when they fought. He didn't know what would happen if he fought in this city of bones and caused a terrifying amount of blood to flow again. Who knew what would happen? It might lead to something even more terrifying. Therefore, Lin Xian did not want to fight now. It was better to avoid this disaster first. Lin Xian and the rest turned around and prepared to leave to look for other houses. However, just as they turned around, they heard a scream coming from the house in front of them. The scream was very pitiful and it was filled with fear. It was as if the person had encountered something terrible. Lin Xian and the rest stopped in their tracks when they heard the scream. They turned around and looked in front of them. Previously, a disciple of the Five Elements sect had entered the ancient house. Why was he screaming now? Was he under attack? However, other than him, no one else had entered the house. Lu Mingyue was also scared out of her wits when she heard the scream. No matter how powerful she was still a woman. She was terrified when she saw something unknown. Is there someone else inside? Or is there something we don't know? Lin Xian and the rest were shocked. They looked in front of them and decided to take a look. When they arrived at the house, they suddenly heard crunching sounds coming from inside. It sounded like someone was gnawing on bones. Their scalps went numb when they heard the sound. Lu Mingyue's face turned pale and her eyes were filled with fear. That was because the sound was simply too strange. Combined with the scream from before, an extremely terrifying scene appeared in everyone's hearts. "Open it and take a look." Lin Xian raised his hand and was ready to blast the Five Elements power away. He wanted to see what kind of monster was in the house. However, the sound of gnawing disappeared in the next moment. The door of the house creaked open. The Five Elements power disappeared and the Five Elements sect disciple walked out. However, his complexion was somewhat pale and his hair was rather messy. Other than that, nothing else could be seen. "Are you okay?" Gu Santong asked. As for the Five Elements sect's disciple, he coldly snorted. "What could possibly happen to me? How ridiculous." Hearing this, Lin Xian and Gu Santong frowned. Lu Mingyue's pupils constricted. That was because when she looked through the Five Elements sect's disciple, she saw a pool of blood on the floor of the ancient house. It was bright red and had not solidified. It was obvious that it had just fallen. What's with the blood? There was a battle here. Lu Mingyue was shocked. She quickly sent a voice transmission to Lin Xian. Although she had been captured by Lin Xian, they were now in the same boat. Moreover, she had been sealed and did not have much power. Therefore, she needed Lin Xian's protection. She immediately told Lin Xian about the eerie situation. Lin Xian's eyes flashed. He also realized that there was blood inside. However, the Five Elements sect disciple did not seem to have any abnormalities. Therefore, he could only give up. He shook his head and left with the rest of the group. However, at this moment, the Five Elements sect disciple said, "If you go out now, you will die. In this ancient city, only these houses are safe. The other streets are not safe at all. You will most likely be killed by the energy." "What do you mean?" Lin Xian turned around and asked coldly. The Five Elements sect disciple quickly said, "Nothing. This house is bigger anyway. Why don't you all come in?" Hearing this, Lin Xian frowned. This was because his attitude was different from before. After all, he had a grudge against the Five Elements sect. Furthermore, the Five Elements sect's disciple had displayed killing intent towards him. If it was not for the fact that the place was not suitable, the other party would have already attacked. However, the other party had invited him to hide in the house. It was too eerie. However, in the next moment, he narrowed his eyes. So be it. He was not afraid of the other party's tricks. Therefore, he called Gu Santong, Lu Mingyue, and the Crimson Dragon. Then, the group entered the house. As for the Five Elements sect's disciple, a strange smile appeared on the corners of his mouth as he looked at their backs. In the next moment, he also strode into the house and closed the door. Then, he used a force to seal it. The house was not big. It was a very ordinary room with some tables and chairs. However, it was very old and had a thick layer of dust on it. In addition, there were some miscellaneous items around. Most of them were very old. Moreover, the inside of the house was very dark. Especially when the Five Elements sect disciple closed the door, the inside of the house became even darker. It could even be described as pitch black. However, Lin Xian and the others were all King Realm experts. This little bit of darkness was nothing to them. Therefore, they did not take it to heart. They sat there and waited quietly. They could even vaguely hear the continuous explosions outside. The Five Elements sect disciple had unknowingly circled behind them. The eerie smile on his face became even more obvious. There was even a dark red light in his eyes. Boom! Another earth-shattering sound was heard. Then, Lin Xian felt the entire house begin to shake. Needless to say, the attacks of the peerless monsters must have hit the inside of the giant city. Everyone was shocked. They did not know when the attacks would stop. However, no one noticed the smile on the Five Elements sect disciple's face and the red light in his eyes. In the next moment, something strange happened. The Five Elements sect disciple attacked decisively. His palm carried a terrifying storm as it blasted forward. His target was obvious. It was the sealed Lu Mingyue. Lu Mingyue felt the energy behind her and screamed. She suddenly turned around. At the same time, a chaotic light appeared between her eyebrows and slashed forward. Boom! The chaotic light collided with the terrifying energy and caused an explosion. Lu Mingyue's body retreated like a fallen leaf. Chapter 1797. Although he was hit, he still managed to dodge the fatal blow. The light of chaos was her life-saving measure. It was set up by the elders of the sect. It could help her dodge a fatal blow. She did not use it even when she was fighting Lin Xian. She did not expect to use it now. Lin Xian, Gu Santong, and the Crimson Dragon were also shocked. Powerful energy surged from their bodies as they stared at the disciple of the Five Elements sect. Gu Santong waved his hand and used the power of space to pull Lu Mingyue to his side. Furthermore, he gave her a few medicinal pills and told her to consume them to heal her injuries. On the other hand, Lin Xian's eyes were cold as he stared at the other party. He said coldly, "You really are up to no good. How dare you attack us? However, I really don't understand. Are you out of your mind? How dare you attack us alone? We'll know if we can defeat you after we try." The disciple of the Five Elements sect had a strange smile on his face. A dark red light bloomed in his eyes. "Not good. Kid, be careful. He's not the disciple of the Five Elements sect." The Crimson Dragon quickly reminded him when he saw this. Not the disciple of the Five Elements sect? Lin Xian was shocked. He did not know what that meant. However, the disciple of the Five Elements sect suddenly attacked. His palm transformed into a five-colored palm and slammed down at Lin Xian, covering the sky and earth. The power of the 5 elements gathered in his palm, forming a terrifying light storm. The disciple of the 5 elements sect was very decisive. He did not hesitate and attacked Lin Xian. To be honest, Lin Xian was also surprised. His name had spread throughout the primeval forest. Other than the top few prodigies, no one dared to attack him. Now, a martial artist of the 5 elements sect dared to attack him. It seemed that he did not know what was good for him. Humph. With a cold harumph, Lin Xian threw out a punch. Bang! The fist and palm collided. A low sound was heard. However, this time, Lin Xian was even more surprised. He even showed a trace of doubt. He realized that his opponent could actually fight against him. This was simply inconceivable. One had to know that his current combat strength belonged to the top batch here. Even the sealed almighties were no match for him. But now, the other party was actually able to contend against him, which really surprised him. The 5 elements sect's disciple was also taken aback. A red light flashed in his eyes. Brat, I didn't expect you to have some skills. You were actually able to block my move. Upon hearing this, Lin Xian frowned and said coldly, You're not from the 5 elements sect. Who are you? The people of the 5 elements sect did not dare to speak to him like this, but the other party did not seem to care at all. Therefore, he was definitely not from the 5 elements sect. Humph. Dead people don't need to know so much. The 5 elements sect's disciple coldly snorted and once again moved towards Lin Xian. As the two exchanged blows, each strike was like a clap of thunder. The more Lin Xian thought about it, the more shocked he became. His opponent's battle prowess was too strong, and he couldn't help but take this seriously. So in the next moment, he pulled out the 9 Serenity's demon sword. Sword chi soared into the sky, and then he stabbed out. Buzz! A resplendent light shocked the sky. This sword was extremely sharp. Clang! The black demon sword seemed to have collided with a mountain. It pierced through the opponent's palm, leaving a bloody hole on it. You're courting death. The 5 elements sect's disciple's expression finally changed. He did not expect the other party's sword chi to be so terrifying that it could pierce through his palm. So in the next moment, he roared angrily. The power in his body suddenly erupted and surged fiercely towards Lin Xian and the others. Lin Xian's expression was solemn. He retreated rapidly and completely left the ancient house, arriving on the street. Brat, you dare to hurt me? I'll kill you. The 5 elements sect's disciple's expression was ferocious. His eyes were emitting a red light, and the scene was extremely terrifying. You're not from the 5 elements sect. Who are you? Lin Xian pointed his sword forward and asked coldly. He realized that the other party was too strange, especially that pair of eyes. They were even more terrifying than a malicious spirit. The people of the 5 elements sect should not have such an aura. Moreover, there were screams and sounds of bones being chewed in the ancient house. He guessed that the 5 elements sect's disciple had been killed long ago. As for this person, who knew what he was? Hearing Lin Xian's cold roar, the 5 elements sect's disciple sneered and did not answer. His 5 fingers formed a claw, and the wound quickly healed. Then, he slapped forward. Boom! The terrifying palm landed, and the surrounding void cracked. Even the entire space trembled violently. The 5 elements sect's disciple's palm shone brightly as he grabbed at Lin Xian. Humph! If you don't speak, I'll beat you until you reveal your true form. Lin Xian snorted coldly. He waved the 9 darkness demon sword and quickly attacked. The terrifying sword chi was like a huge black mountain. It fell quickly and collided with the opponent's palm. Boom, boom, boom. An earth-shattering sound rang out, and the entire street shook violently. The two of them each took a step back, and their eyes were filled with shock. Not only Lin Xian, but even Gu Santong, Lu Mingyue, and the Crimson Dragon were shocked. They knew of Lin Xian's strength. He was a terrifying expert, and yet he was able to fight to a standstill. They had to admit that it was too shocking. What a troublesome person. But do you think that I can't deal with you just like that? Lin Xian sneered. The sword chi on his body surged, and the dragon sword territory quickly appeared and shrouded the opponent. Then, thousands of sword chi turned into flowing light and pierced forward. This attack was too terrifying. The sword chi that filled the sky was extremely sharp. They were densely packed, and they blew up everything in front of them. Roar! In front of them, in the explosion of the energy vortex, a piercing scream rang out. The scream was ear-piercing, and it made everyone's scalp tingle. In the next moment, a figure walked out of the storm. However, the clothes on his body were still torn. Not only that, there were many wounds on his body, revealing his dark skin. The 5 Elements sect disciple grabbed with his hand and tore off the skin on his body. Then, a piece of human skin was torn off. What? Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. Lu Mingyue's face turned pale, and she felt like vomiting. Because it was too disgusting. Can you imagine someone tearing off all the skin on their body with 5 fingers? That's what it was like now. Indeed, the 5 Elements sect disciple in front of them was no longer a human. He had turned into a ghost. At this moment, his body was red and black, and there was even blood flowing from his body. He looked like a monster. The human skin fell to the ground, stained with blood. It was extremely strange. Roar! The eyes of the ghost in front of them shone with a terrifying red light. His entire body was covered with an eerie ghostly aura. It was extremely terrifying, and it made one's scalp tingle. You're not human. Chapter 1798. You really aren't human. Lin Xian was shocked. His expression was cold as he realized that his guess was right. The other party was not a disciple of the 5 Elements sect, but an unknown creature. It was very likely that it was a creature that originally existed in the White Bone City. Thinking of this, his face became serious because the other party's strength was not weak at all. Now that it had removed its disguise, how strong would it be? This White Bone City was indeed too strange. It actually had such a malicious spirit. Roar! The malicious spirit roared and turned into a bolt of lightning again, pouncing toward Lin Xian. Lin Xian also used the Heavenly Dragon's 8 steps. His body was like lightning as he rushed upward. The two of them fought fiercely. Their battle was very fierce and fast. From afar, it looked like 2 flashes of light were constantly colliding in the air. Boom! Suddenly, Lin Xian's figure flashed. The 9 darkness demonic sword in his hand was emitting a dazzling light of thunder and fire. Thunder and fire, the most young energy in the world, had a strong restraining effect on ghost martial artists. Now that Lin Xian used it, he naturally wanted to restrain the other party. Whoosh! As the sword slashed down, the thunder and fire sword chi flashed quickly and fiercely slashed down from the sky, bringing with it a strong storm. There was a strong young energy. It was as if it could destroy all ghosts and demons. Seeing that the sword was filled with the most yang energy, the malicious spirit's face changed. The red light in his eyes shone even brighter. His body quickly dodged, forming a pitch-black space around him. Whoosh! Whoosh! This black domain was very strange. It had a cold aura of death and could even devour everything. Puff! The thunder and fire sword slashed down and collided with the black domain, making the sound of ice and fire mixing. As for the surrounding void, it started to vibrate violently like a painting. Roar! Suddenly, a terrifying crack was cut open in the pitch-black domain, revealing the malicious spirit inside. In the next moment, the sword chi slashed on the malicious spirit's body, tearing a terrifying crack open. Drip! Drip! Black blood fell from the sky and dripped on the ground. The malicious ghost let out a furious roar and transformed into a dark cloud. It instantly fled into the distance and disappeared. Lin Xian looked at the fleeing figure and did not give chase. Instead, he frowned. This was simply too shocking. What kind of creature could have black blood? He didn't know. However, he knew that the other party was definitely not human. Everyone, be careful. This place is too strange. Don't be careless, Gu Santong said in a low voice. However, at this time, several miserable cries sounded from the distance again. They were extremely mournful, tearing through the void. Hearing this voice, the few of them frowned and quickly ran into the distance. In the next moment, They saw a king with half his body torn apart and covered in blood. He was being gnawed to death by a pitch-black monster. It was the same situation again. From the looks of it, there was more than one malicious ghost-like monster. It was spread throughout the entire White Bone City. It wasn't safe outside, and it wasn't safe inside the city either. Boom! A great battle erupted, because more than one malicious spirit-like creature appeared. Their figures appeared on several streets. Among them, some of the weaker kings were directly killed by the malicious ghosts. The more powerful king realm cultivators would fight against them. One of the battles was extremely intense. It was a human who was surrounded by dazzling halos. It was as if he had been blessed by the gods and was extremely terrifying. His entire body was surging with holy light. Each ray was like a monstrous wave. The All-Cade Saint. Many kings saw this scene from afar and exclaimed in surprise. Lin Xian also narrowed his eyes and looked from afar. He had to admit that the other party was indeed an extremely powerful figure. Even from so far away, he could feel the overwhelming aura from the other party. The palm shadow contained a terrifying power that could easily shatter a 6-star king. After beating the malicious ghost away with one palm, the All-Cade Saint seemed to have sensed Lin Xian's gaze and turned his head to look at him. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Their gazes clashed in the air, causing small cracks to appear in the void. Seeing this scene, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. There was someone who could compete with the All-Cade Saint. This was unbelievable. The next moment, they turned their heads to look. When they saw Lin Xian, everyone was extremely shocked because they also recognized Lin Xian. This kid is too terrifying. He can actually compete with the All-Cade Saint. This is a god of slaughter. Don't provoke him. Discussions broke out one after another. They had seen Lin Xian's means. Previously, Lu Mingyue had led so many kings to chase after him, but they were all killed by him. One could imagine how terrifying he was. They were even secretly calling Lin Xian the god of slaughter. The All-Cade Saint was also surprised. He did not expect that the other party could resist his gaze. However, the next moment, he turned his head with a cold expression. His entire body flickered with light and turned into a stream of light, disappearing from the street. Apart from the All-Cade Saint, the others were also fighting because those malicious ghosts were very strange. Most of them had crawled out of the ancient houses. Boom! Another earth-shattering sound rang out, attracting everyone's attention. Who was he? How could he fight two malicious ghosts? Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. He seemed to be the genius of the Yi family. So powerful. One person fighting two malicious ghosts. This means that he's even more powerful than the All-Cade Saint, right? How can he be more powerful than the All-Cade Saint? The All-Cade Saint didn't encounter two malicious ghosts. Otherwise, he would definitely be able to deal with them easily. Discussions broke out one after another. Obviously, they were also extremely shocked by the scene in front of them. Lin Xian also turned his head and saw Yi Wudao. The expert in front of him who was fighting two malicious ghosts was Yi Wudao. There was no bright light on his body, and his fist technique was very simple. However, the effect was indeed very terrifying. He punched out, simple and unadorned. However, the entire void exploded, and even the malicious ghost's black palm exploded. When everyone saw this scene, they were all stunned and could not believe it. They had seen how powerful the malicious ghost was. It was terrifying. Ordinary 6-star kings were not a match for it at all. But now, someone could actually injure it with a punch. This was too shocking. What kind of fist technique is that? It's so terrifying. Who knows? This fist technique looks very ordinary, but I didn't expect it to be so powerful. Many kings exclaimed in surprise. However, there were some almighties who frowned. He's a disciple of the Yi family. The Yi family is an ancient family. They even had a great emperor. Yes, even in the era where there were no great emperors, there were saint physiques. I just don't know if he has such a physique. Chapter 1799. What? A holy physique. Hearing this, everyone's scalps went numb and their faces were filled with shock. However, an elder shook his head. That can't be. That kind of physique is extremely rare. Even the Yi family has only produced a few in all these years. If there was one, would the Yi family be willing to let him come to such a dangerous place? Is it dangerous here? I'm afraid that before entering, no one knew that this place was dangerous. They all thought that there were countless treasures in this mystic world. Someone sneered. Hearing this, everyone fell silent. Indeed, no one knew that this mystic world was extremely dangerous. Only when they entered did they realize that they had entered a place of great danger. Could it be that this person really was a holy physique of the Yi family? A holy physique. Hearing this, Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. He had also heard of this physique. It was an extremely terrifying physique in the eastern wilderness. It was rumored that this mysterious physique not only had immense strength, but also extremely strong defense. It had incredible magical powers. He did not expect Yi Wudao to have such a physique. Beside him, Gu Santong's eyes flashed, and he was extremely serious. As a disciple of a clan of the ancients, he knew how terrifying this physique was. At the same time, he whispered to himself, our Gu family also has a divine physique. I wonder if it's a holy physique or a holy physique. Which one is stronger? Other than the Alcade Saint and Yi Wudao, there were a few people who displayed even more terrifying power. At first glance, it was obvious that they were all mighties whose cultivation had been suppressed. One of them was wrapped in a silver light. It was impossible to see whether he was real or not. However, he was facing 5 evil spirits at the same time and sent them flying with one palm. This method was too terrifying. It was far beyond everyone's understanding. However, the silver figure disappeared in a flash and was never seen again. This allowed everyone to breathe a sigh of relief. This was because if such a person appeared in front of them, it would have an adverse effect on the balance of the situation. Seeing the silver figure, Lin Xian frowned. He did not expect such an expert to be hidden among the human martial artists. On the other hand, Gu Santong's expression was solemn. It could even be said that he was very ugly. What's wrong, Brother Gu? Lin Xian also noticed this, so he asked, Nothing much. I just feel that the silver figure from before has something to do with the Almighty who was chasing after me. To be honest, Gu Sanhong could not be completely sure, but the aura on the other party's body gave him a familiar feeling. That was why he had such suspicions. However, now that the other party had left, he heaved a sigh of relief. Woo-woo. Just as everyone was shocked by the silver figure, a low voice suddenly came from the ancient house in the distance. It was as if a malicious spirit was weeping. This voice made one's scalp tingle. The next moment, an extremely cold and gloomy aura came from the ancient house in front of him. Whoosh! The entire street was covered in a layer of gray smoke, making the visibility of the surroundings very low. The chilly wind that blew on his body was abnormally cold. Whoosh! All of a sudden, a gray light flashed and streaked across the sky. Then, a scream rang out from among the human ancient martial art practitioners. Shortly after, the screaming king was quickly dragged into the ancient house in front of them. Crack! Crack! What followed was the sound of bones being chewed. Ghost! It's really a ghost. Everyone's scalp went numb when they saw this scene. This was too terrifying. There must be an extremely terrifying malicious spirit in front of them. This was because they did not even see the other party's movements before a king was killed. In other words, the other party's strength had completely surpassed theirs. In an instant, everyone was extremely nervous, as if they were facing a great enemy. If the malicious spirit in front of them attacked again, would they be able to withstand it? However, at this critical moment, a laugh came from afar. What a powerful ghost king. I didn't expect to meet one here. This thing is a great supplement for me. Everyone's scalp tingled when they heard this voice. Someone actually dared to target the ghost king in front of them. Did they want to die? However, what shocked them even more was that the person who spoke was a human ancient martial art practitioner. Since when did such a powerful ancient martial art practitioner appear among the humans? Could it be the silver figure from before? Everyone turned their heads to look in all directions, trying to find the person who spoke. Roar! The ghost king in the ancient house seemed to be roaring angrily as it shot out dozens of gray lights that pierced through the void. Humph! After a cold snort, countless human figures quickly appeared. Finally, they turned into a human figure and appeared on the street. However, in the next moment, everyone was stunned. That was because they realized that the human figure was too strange. That was because the person who appeared was not a powerful elder as everyone had imagined. Instead, it was a child who was only 8 or 9 years old. That child had delicate features and looked very cute. There was even a trace of immaturity on his face. If one did not know better, they would have thought that he was a child of some family. However, that person appeared here. That meant that the other party was at least a king. However, was that person a peerless genius who had reached the king level at the age of 8 or 9? Or was it some old monster who had cultivated a special cultivation technique that caused his body to age and reach the level of a child? Everyone did not know, but thinking about it, the latter was more likely. As soon as the child appeared, he said with a smile, "You think you can hurt me? What a joke." As he said that, he waved his hand and spiritual power gathered, forming a huge palm of light that blasted forward. Wherever it passed, countless cracks appeared on the street. That was too unbelievable. They knew that the ground was very hard, but the child's palm could actually cause damage. It was too shocking. Boom! That palm directly shattered the dozens of lights that filled the sky, turning them into specks of light that scattered on the ground. Not only that, the resplendent palm of light continued to blast towards the ancient house in front of it, as if it wanted to kill the Ghost King directly. Roar! Another furious roar was heard. Then, a pitch-black palm reached out and grabbed forward. In the next moment, it collided with the resplendent palm of light. The collision of the two was earth-shattering. Then, they dissipated into the void at the same time. "You're quite capable, but you won't be able to escape from me today." The child's face darkened. Although his voice was immature, a terrifying aura was emitted from his body. There was even a hint of vicissitudes in his eyes. Obviously, that was not a child, but an old monster. Whoosh! The child's body flickered and appeared in front of the ancient house. His tender little hand contained an incomparably terrifying power as he grabbed forward. In the next moment, he and the Ghost King engaged in an earth-shattering battle. Everyone's scalps went numb when they saw that. However, they did not retreat. Instead, they observed carefully. That was because they also wanted to see if the child could subdue the Ghost King. Not long after, an extremely cold aura suddenly came from the void, and a silver light slashed fiercely towards the child. What? Someone else is attacking? Many people were stunned. Chapter 1800. This silver light came very suddenly without any warning. As soon as it appeared, it turned into a stream of light and slashed towards the child. Oomph! The child snorted and disappeared from where he was, dodging the attack by a hair's breadth. Then, his childish face turned serious. 2 rays of light shot out from his eyes as he stared at the void. "Emotianchi, get the hell out here. Don't hide anymore." His voice was filled with murderous intent. What? Emotianchi? Everyone was shocked and in disbelief. They looked around with their eyes wide open. They knew Emotianchi's name. He was a peerless almighty who had killed the elder of the Wavering Light's sacred ground. It could be said that his name had spread across the entire eastern wilderness. Now that his name appeared here, did he come in too? Many people were shocked, and Lin Xian looked even more serious. Among these people, he had the deepest relationship with Emotianchi. Emotianchi was once the sect leader of the Elixir sect, and he was a disciple of the Elixir sect. He had witnessed Emotianchi's betrayal, and he had been looking for the heavenly secret divine eyes. But now, the heavenly secret divine eyes were with him, so the relationship between the two was very complicated. At this moment, Lin Xian decided that he could not use the heavenly secret divine eyes here. Otherwise, he would not be able to escape if Emotianchi found out. Although this space suppressed almighties and sealed their cultivation, Emotianchi was not an ordinary almighty. However, Emotianchi was no ordinary almighty. He was a peerless almighty. His strength was incomparably terrifying. Who knew what level his strength had reached? Lin Xian was secretly on guard. On the other side, the void fluctuated, and a silver light flashed. Then, a handsome and evil young man appeared in front of everyone. He was dressed in white, holding a folding fan and a jade flute at his waist. He was very handsome. If they did not know, they would think that he was a young master. But everyone knew that he was a peerless almighty. Emotianchi, it's you. The 8 or 9-year-old child stared ahead and said coldly, "You betrayed the sacred hall, and you still dare to show yourself? Today, I will eliminate you on behalf of the sacred hall." The child exuded killing intent. St. Hall? What St. Hall? The surrounding people were puzzled. They had never heard of it before. And it seemed that Emotianchi and that child were both from the St. Hall. If this was true, then this St. Hall was too terrifying. But why had they never heard of it before? They didn't even get any information about it. Lin Xian was also puzzled. He asked the Crimson Dragon, but the Crimson Dragon shook his head. The Crimson Dragon didn't know about the Templar either. "You think you can kill me? How laughable." Emotianchi shook his head slightly. "You're neither human nor ghost. What are you doing here instead of staying in Nanjiang?" "That's my business. You don't have to know." The 8 or 9-year-old child snorted coldly, his expression abnormally cold. "Do you think you can deal with me now that you've come out? I don't know if I can deal with you, but I can stop you from subduing this ghost king." The corner of Emotianchi's mouth curled up slightly. Then, an extremely terrifying aura surged from his body. Boom. In the next moment, he attacked mercilessly. Terrifying energy flowed forward. At the same time, the Ghost King also attacked at the same time, attacking the 8 or 9-year-old child together. The child snorted coldly. Then, he waved his hand and a black scroll appeared in his hand. Pung pung pung. In the next moment, the black scroll fluttered in the wind. Black light scattered in all directions, blocking the shocking attacks of Emotianchi and the Ghost King. Then, 2 short black sticks appeared in his hands. He kept knocking them. Clang, clang, clang. A low sound echoed in the surroundings, making everyone's hair stand on end. Buzz. Just as everyone was wondering what the other party was up to, a figure suddenly flew over from afar. In the next moment, he arrived beside the 8 or 9-year-old child. When everyone saw this scene, they went crazy. Even Lin Xian was extremely shocked. This was because the figure that appeared in front of them was none other than the burial goods that appeared at the entrance of the Palace of Bones. Weren't these burial goods supposed to be fighting with the demonic beasts outside? Why were they here? And from the looks of it, they seemed to be very respectful to the child. Could there be some connection between the two? The figure in front had a dull expression. He was wearing an ancient battle robe and emitted a monstrous aura of death. He was like a divine spear that stood there, making people look up to him. Emotianchi did not attack. His figure flashed and he retreated into the distance, his cold eyes flickering. "Looks like your corpse controlling technique has become much stronger. You can even move this kind of ancient burial object. I have to say, I really underestimated you. Don't you think it's a little late for you to find out now?" The child sneered. "Attacking me in this place is your biggest mistake." However, when he heard this, Emotianchi looked up to the sky and laughed. His eyes were filled with disdain. "Taimu Sun, do you really think that a mere burial object can trap me? And this place is not only beneficial to you, but also to me." In the next moment, he put away the folding fan in his hand and pulled out the jade flute from his waist. Then, he gently put it to his mouth. Woo-woo. A strange sound echoed in the surroundings. Soon, countless miserable cries could be heard from afar, following which, 5 to 6 dark figures rushed over at high speed. Malicious ghosts. When everyone saw this scene, their scalps went numb and their eyes widened. Could Emotianchi control malicious ghosts? In the next moment, they realized that it was true. The 5 or 6 malicious ghosts returned to Emotianchi's side. They were very respectful like servants. Emotianchi waved his sleeve, and the malicious ghosts immediately rushed forward like crazy. Not only that, there were even more malicious ghosts rushing over from afar. The Ghost King had also become abnormally irritable. A great battle broke out. Both of them were extremely powerful. Although they were suppressed and sealed, The means they displayed were too terrifying. Not only that, but both of them were extremely powerful. One could control the corpse of an ancient king, and the other could control the malicious ghosts here. The two's techniques were simply too terrifying, causing the surrounding kings to continuously retreat in fear. Clang. When a powerful wave of energy spread to the surroundings, all the kings retreated. Let's go. Lin Xian also retreated decisively. If he stayed here, it was very likely that he would be discovered by Mo Tianqi. That would be too disadvantageous for him. In fact, Lin Xian also knew that he had been discovered by Mo Tianqi long ago. He just did not know why Mo Tianqi did not make a move. Perhaps in Mo Tianqi's eyes, he was just an ant that was not worth mentioning. He had nothing to do with the heavenly secret divine eyes. Chapter 1801. In fact, Lin Xian was right. Mo Tianqi had noticed Lin Xian long ago, but for some reason, he could not attack him directly. Mo Tianqi had resurrected Ouyang Feng and a few other strong cultivators and asked them to attack. He did not expect them to fail. After that, Mo Tianqi discovered other secrets in the primordial forest, and for a while, he could not care about Lin Xian. Now that he was fighting someone else, he naturally could not care about Lin Xian. On the other side, Gu Santong's expression was cold. He realized that the person chasing him was most likely Mo Tianqi. He did not know why Mo Tianqi was chasing him, but no matter what the reason was, he was in a bad situation. Even if he was a genius disciple of a clan of the ancients, even if he was a dazzling genius, it would be difficult for him to escape from being targeted by an almighty. For a moment, everyone was retreating. However, a stream of light flashed in the crowd, and then a figure surrounded by divine light appeared. Yao Guang Sage. Many people exclaimed, because it seemed that the other party was about to attack, but they did not know who he was targeting. In the next moment, the crowd exclaimed, because they realized that the Yao Guang Sage was targeting Yi Wudao. That's right, the Yao Guang Sage was targeting Yi Wudao. He came in front of Yi Wudao, and his whole body was shining brightly. Yi Clan Sage body, do you dare to fight me? The Yao Guang Sage's voice was cold and powerful. Why wouldn't I dare? Yi Wudao was not afraid at all, and a terrifying power exuded from his body, causing the void to distort rapidly. Boom! The two young geniuses fought together, and the sky and the earth cracked. The surrounding kings ran even faster. Lin Xian and Gu Santong also retreated quickly. When the two of them joined forces, nothing could stop them, and no one dared to have any ideas about them. In the next moment, Lin Xian, Gu Santong, and the others walked into the depths of the White Bone City. Not long after, Lin Xian and the others arrived at the depths of the White Bone City. It was even quieter here, and the loud rumbles in the distance had become so soft that they could not even hear them. There were many ancient buildings around, but no one dared to enter because they were afraid of attracting more powerful ghosts. As they walked forward, the area in front of them gradually widened. There weren't so many buildings, and instead, a huge plaza was formed. There was actually a huge sword in the square, a giant sword that reached the heavens. Lin Xian was astonished. He realized that the huge sword in front of him was very similar to the huge sword that came out of the sea of bones outside. However, why was there such a gigantic sword in White Bones City? However, what was even stranger was that there were mysterious Dao runes on the giant sword that continued to spread throughout the area. Even the entire plaza was covered in those Dao patterns. It was a very peculiar imitation of some kind of sacrificial offering in ancient times. What was the use of this huge sword, and what was it for? Why would it appear in the giant bone city? Lin Xian and the others were very confused. Many people were extremely curious. They walked forward and prepared to find out what was going on. Lin Xian, Gu Santong, and the rest also walked forward. They blended into the crowd and walked forward. Many of those people came to the vicinity of the enormous sword, but nothing happened. However, the moment Lin Xian stepped onto the plaza, the entire plaza began to tremble. The huge sword in front of him suddenly shook. Countless Dao runes flashed on it, and then condensed into a shocking sword light. It exploded from the huge sword and swept out in all directions. What's going on? What happened? Everyone was shocked. They did not expect the huge sword to suddenly change. The martial artists at the front were directly swept by the sword light and were sent flying. For a moment, everyone was bewildered. They did not dare to go forward because it was too strange. Lin Xian was also shocked. Could the huge sword's change have something to do with him? Or was it related to the great dragon sword soul in his body? He did not know, but he knew that it must be related. Therefore, in the next moment, he walked forward again. Buzz. The huge sword shone brightly. Then, the Tao runes seemed to come alive and emitted an even more peculiar light. Some of them even formed strange Tao runes, as if to express something to the crowd. This is? Many kings were shocked. They realized that it was very likely a powerful martial technique. Therefore, in the next moment, they all focused on observing. However, although these Tao runes were strange, they were very obscure. These people looked at them for a long time, but they did not understand what they meant. Gu Santong looked at the Tao runes in front of him, his eyes flashing. Previously, when he was outside, he had spent a long time comprehending the huge sword near Gu Hai. Now that he saw the huge sword again, he did not feel that it was unfamiliar. Therefore, he walked to a suitable place and silently comprehended it. Lin Xian's eyes also flashed as he engraved the Tao runes in his mind. Although he could not fully comprehend them now, he believed that as long as he continued to comprehend them, he would definitely be able to comprehend something. The huge sword flashed. Not only was Lin Xian and the others shocked, but even Imo Tianqi, the Alcade Sage Son, and the others who were fighting in the distance were startled. However, Imo Tianqi and the 8- or 9-year-old child were engaged in an intense battle and did not rush over. However, the Alcade Sage Son and Yi Wudao stopped and did not continue fighting. Instead, they quickly rushed over. The arrival of the Alcade Sage Son and Yi Wudao attracted everyone's attention. Many people woke up from their comprehension and looked behind them. They wanted to know who had won this battle. However, judging from their expressions, they are both calm. It seems like a draw. There is no clear victor. Perhaps the battle was too short. It is impossible to determine the victor in a short period of time. Discussions broke out one after another. But no matter what the outcome was, the two of them were still top-notch existences. Yi Wudao and the Alcade Sage Son clearly did not notice the discussions. Their gazes were focused on the huge sword in front of them. As they looked ahead, their eyes flashed with resplendent light. Yi Wudao was like a god of war as he strode forward. Soon, he chose a place and silently comprehended. On the other side, the Alcade Sage Son also snorted coldly and walked forward. Everywhere he passed, the kings around him quickly dodged. But soon, he frowned because he discovered that there was a figure who dared to block his path. The surrounding martial artists also saw this scene and immediately began to whisper to each other. Someone actually dares to block the Alcade Sage Son. He is really courting death. Yeah, isn't that person too bold? What do you know? That kid is a demon king. This is going to be interesting. Many people recognized Lin Xian. They naturally knew that Lin Xian's strength was extremely terrifying. After the attack, Lin Xian stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his whole body emitting the aura of spiritual power. Facing the Alcade Saint, he was extremely powerful. The surrounding people widened their eyes in disbelief. They didn't expect Lin Xian to be able to contend with the Alcade Saint. This was simply inconceivable. The Alcade Saint also frowned. He didn't expect Lin Xian to be able to block his attack. This was indeed beyond his expectations. One should know that he was a saint, and his strength was extremely terrifying. Not many people in the younger generation could contend with him. Lin Xian was neither a genius from the clan of the ancients nor a saint from a peerless sacred ground. How could he block his attack? He had never seen such a thing before. Boy, I have to say that you are indeed beyond my expectations. You are worthy of my attack. However, it is obviously unwise for you to do so. You will end up in a miserable state if you fight with me. Cut the crap. I want to see what right do you have to ask me to get lost today? Lin Xian snorted coldly, and his aura suddenly burst out. He was too angry. He had been comprehending here, and didn't pay attention to Lin Xian at all. However, Lin Xian attacked him directly without any reason, which was intolerable. Therefore, he must teach Lin Xian a lesson today. So what if Lin Xian was the Alcade Saint? If he dared to provoke him, he would still beat him up. Seeing Lin Xian's domineering attitude, the Alcade Saint's face darkened. Even Yi Wudao didn't dare to treat him like this. However, an unknown boy dared to look down on him, which made him want to kill him. In the next moment, the holy light on his body shone even brighter. He was like a holy light emissary, emitting endless light. Holy light palm. With a wave of his palm, the entire sky was illuminated like a resplendent sun, suppressing forward. Facing the Alcade Saint's powerful attack, Lin Xian wasn't afraid at all. He punched out, and his black fist drew a strange arc in the air. The sky was filled with dark light. It was extremely terrifying, and it collided with the holy palm. The light shone, and a sonorous sound spread in all directions. The surrounding kings trembled, and they were almost killed by this energy. At the same time, a huge light spread out in all directions. Everyone was shocked and sucked in a breath of cold air because they realized that Lin Xian was really able to contend against the Alcade Saint. Not only that, but the two of them were also fighting. On the square, the two figures were like lightning, constantly exchanging blows. Every time they collided, the void would explode, and a terrifying black hole would appear. The two of them were so powerful that the crowd could only catch some blurry shadows. Only Gu Santong, Yi Wudao, and the older generation figures, as well as the mighty figures who had been suppressed, were able to clearly watch the entire battle. However, these people's faces were also extremely solemn because the two of them were like gods of war, blooming with light. The powerful force suppressed all directions, making them feel uncomfortable. They were frightened. Lin Xian was fighting the Alcade Saint. He was extremely powerful, and he wasn't at a disadvantage at all. He was like a raging dragon. The destructive black dragon scroll opened and closed, constantly bombarding. Heavens, who is that boy? Is he also a saint of a large sect? It's very possible. Maybe he's hiding his identity. Otherwise, no one else can compete with the Alcade Saint. Everyone was shocked because they realized that Lin Xian's strength was too terrifying. Boom! Terrifying light surged out, and Lin Xian's fist was like a black mountain, directly sweeping forward. The shocking black aura quickly intertwined and rushed towards the Alcade Saint. Boom! 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 Every black light was extremely huge, like a mountain, and pitch black, as if a true dragon had appeared in the world. The void was like a painting that was ruthlessly torn apart in an instant, and terrifying energy filled every inch of space. The Alcade Saint used the Saint Light technique to resist with all his might. However, his expression was extremely solemn, and it could even be said that he was shocked, because he never thought that the other party could compete with him, and for so long. Chapter 1803. However, his expression was solemn and even shocked. He had never thought that the other party would be able to contend with him for such a long time. One had to know that only saints and other prodigies could compete with him. However, the other party was not famous at all. He had never even heard of him. This meant that the other party was definitely not a disciple of a sacred ground. However, the other party had incredible combat strength and was able to fight with him without being at a disadvantage. It was truly shocking. At the same time, it made him extremely angry. The next moment, he clasped his hands together, and the light on his body rose again. A powerful and terrifying force surged out like a tsunami. Boom! The entire world trembled violently in an instant, and a terrifying force slammed in all directions. The surrounding kings frantically retreated, and their eyes were filled with horror. Lin Xian also swayed and distanced himself. What? The wavering light saint's aura has become stronger again? How terrifying. Could it be that the wavering light saint didn't use his full strength before? That must be it. No wonder that kid could hold on for such a long time. It seems that the wavering light saint went easy on him previously. I'm afraid that kid won't be having a good time now. He might even be defeated immediately. Discussions broke out. Obviously, they were shocked by the power that the wavering light saint had displayed. Lin Xian also narrowed his eyes and stopped attacking. He said in a low voice, "You really did hide your strength. Since you know, why don't you obediently surrender? Kneel by the side. Otherwise, when I attack, you'll really die." The wavering light saint's voice was cold. Lin Xian laughed. "Do you think you're the only one who hid your strength?" As he spoke, he clenched his fist and pulled out the Nine Darkness demonic sword from the void. The originally violent black aura on his body instantly transformed into terrifying sword chi that shot into the sky. Those sword lights were so sharp that they seemed to be able to break through the heavens and cut through the Nine Darkness. Even some kings started to tremble uncontrollably. What? What a terrifying sword chi. That kid actually hid his strength too. Heavens, how is that possible? How can he be so powerful? Kill. In the square, Lin Xian coldly snorted. He quickly waved the Nine Hell Devil sword, and streaks of sword light fell like the Milky Way. The radiance was boundless and endless. Tens of thousands of sword chi rushed into the clouds, shocking everyone. Clang, clang. The Alcade Saint also snorted coldly and used the Saint Light technique to fight back. Above his left hand, boundless radiance condensed, forming a huge light shield. On top of it, there was a sun pattern, which was extremely dazzling. Holy Light Shield. The Alcade Saint held a huge light shield in his hand to resist the sword chi that filled the sky. Clang, clang, clang. A terrifying vibration sounded, tearing the void apart. The divine light shield in the hands of the Alcade Holy Sun dimmed instantly. However, the Alcade Saint let out a furious roar as countless saint lights gushed out from his body. It quickly replenished the divine light shield. This caused the divine light shield to shine once more. Not only that, but all kinds of strange runes shone on the holy light shield this time, blocking the sword chi. On the other side, Lin Xian held the demon sword in his hand. He was like a god of death, and the more he fought, the braver he became. The Nine Darkness demon sword was pitch black, and the black sword chi was like a crescent wave that slashed forward. Bang! This sword was more terrifying than all the previous sword chi, so even though the Alcade Saint was holding the holy light shield, he was still forced to retreat. What? The Alcade Saint was forced to retreat. Everyone opened their mouths wide in disbelief. Although the Alcade Saint was not injured, it was still unbelievable that he was forced to retreat. That was the Alcade Saint. He was absolutely terrifying in the younger generation. The Alcade Saint was also shocked. He found that his opponent was too powerful, and he was not weaker than Yu Dao. Humph! The next moment, he let out an angry roar, and his entire person became furious. Two bright rays of light shot out from his eyes, like torches that pierced through the void. His entire body was covered by a bright halo that was like a flame, making him look incomparably majestic. Not only that, he held the holy light shield in his left hand, and a bright spear appeared in his right hand. The long spear vibrated, and the sky was filled with multicolored light, and a terrifying power swept in all directions. Boom! The Alcade Saint finally began to fight back. He stabbed out, and the bright spear in his hand instantly erupted. The terrifying power was like a torch that shrouded Lin Xian. Lin Xian also let out a cold roar, and a shocking sword light burst out from his eyes. He held the demon's sword in his hand and swung it around. The two constantly collided, bursting out lightning-like rays of light that surrounded the surroundings. Soon, 100 moves had passed, and the two of them were still fighting. They were evenly matched. All the spectators were shocked. They now found that Lin Xian was really too powerful. He was able to be evenly matched with the Alcade Saint. The Alcade Saint was also shocked, and then his face became extremely ugly. However, he did not attack again in the next moment. Instead, he waved out a shocking spear light, and then his entire body retreated. Lin Xian shattered the spear light, but he did not attack. He stared coldly at his opponent. It seemed that the two of them would not be able to determine the result of this battle for a while, unless they used all their trump cards, but in that case, others would benefit. Therefore, the two of them would not attack again. The Alcade Saint snorted coldly and ignored Lin Xian. He also did not fight for Lin Xian's position. Instead, he walked in another direction and silently comprehended the giant sword in front of him. Lin Xian put away the demon sword and also began to comprehend. The surrounding people were shocked. The battle had happened so suddenly and ended so quickly that no one could react. Outside, the battle between the peerless Monster King and the City of Bones was still going on. The terrifying sound waves were like waves that kept bombarding. Lin Xian looked at the giant sword in front of him and fell into a strange state. Suddenly, he found that the giant sword in front of him was emitting a bright light. Then, the scene in front of him also changed. He found that in the square, in addition to the giant sword in front of him, there were 4 more illusory sword shadows. Each of them was indomitable and incomparably huge, emitting a monstrous aura. They suppressed the entire square as if they were sealing something. What's going on? Lin Xian was shocked. He did not expect that there would be 4 illusory sword shadows around him. He turned his head and looked around. He found that the others were still silently comprehending, as if they did not notice the 4 illusory sword shadows around them. What's going on? Am I the only one who saw it? Now, he found that the scene he saw was different from what others saw, which made him very confused. But in the next moment, he understood. Because the giant sword in front of him had changed. The shape of the sword was rapidly changing, forming the appearance of a giant dragon. The dragon's head and the sword's body were extremely ferocious. A terrifying murderous aura permeated the 9 heavens and 10 lands. What? This is the great dragon sword. Lin Xian looked at the giant sword in front of him in shock. The appearance of the giant sword was too familiar. His great dragon sword soul could condense that appearance. Could it be that the giant sword in front of me is the great dragon sword? Lin Xian was too shocked. He only had the great dragon sword soul, and the great dragon sword had disappeared in the ancient times. He did not know where it was. But he did not expect to see the great dragon sword body now. If he could obtain the great dragon sword body and merge with the great dragon sword soul, then his combat strength would be incomparably heaven-defying. However, was the other party the real great dragon sword? He did not know. Moreover, even if it was real, he did not have the ability to subdue the giant sword in front of him. The other party emitted an incomparably terrifying aura, as if it was a real giant dragon. Anyone in front of it would feel incomparably small. Lin Xian looked at this scene and was shocked. However, he soon thought of something. If the giant sword in front of him was the great dragon sword, then, would the other 4 sword shadows be the other 4 divine swords? Of the 5 swords in the world, besides the great dragon sword, there were 4 other divine swords. So in the next moment, Lin Xian looked at the second sword shadow. It was different from the great dragon sword. The great dragon sword was lifelike, and every sword pattern on it was clearly visible. However, the giant sword next to it was incomparably pitch black, like a black hole, making it impossible to see the real situation. Not only that, the space around it was distorted, as if even the light was swallowed. The devouring sword. Lin Xian was shocked. He had seen this kind of divine sword in Lord Alcohol's hands before. He thought that it should be the legendary devouring sword. Lin Xian was too surprised. He found that this was indeed the 5 swords in the world. He did not expect that these sword shadows would appear in the giant bone city. What was the connection between them? Soon, he found something different. This was because he found that below the devouring sword, there was a pattern that connected to the square. It was an incomparably cold place, as if it was hell. The devouring sword was like a black mountain, directly inserted into the demonic earth. In the pattern, there were thousands of demons struggling crazily, but all of them fell to the ground. Could it be that the devouring sword suppressed the demonic earth? Lin Xian was shocked because he could only see this from the pattern. Thinking of the great dragon sword and the giant bone city in front of him, Lin Xian had a bold guess in his heart. Could it be that each of the 5 swords in the world suppressed a forbidden area? But where are those places exactly? Why do they need to be suppressed? Moreover, they are peerless divine objects like the 5 swords in the world. He really could not understand. The third sword shadow was a picture of the 100 forms of life, as if it recorded everything in the world. It also suppressed a forbidden area. It was a continuous mining area that seemed to be buried with endless divine treasures. The fourth sword shadow was even more strange. Around it, there were apes and monkeys, as well as people who looked like ancient war gods. There were even some figures wearing ancient armor and holding totems in their hands. Not only that, there were also some clothes that Lin Xian was familiar with. It was obvious that they were modern. There were even some strange people that he had never seen before. The fifth sword shadow was all kinds of natural scenes. Mountain torrents erupted, heavenly lightning fell, and in short, there were some strange phenomena of heaven and earth. The five sword shadows were extremely terrifying. They brought about different scenes, but without exception, they all suppressed peerless places. This scene caused Lin Xian to be extremely shocked. He knew that these five sword shadows represented the five swords in the world, although he could not completely recognize them. However, he had a certain understanding of them. The first sword shadow was the Great Dragon Sword. The second sword shadow was the Devourer's Sword. The third sword shadow showed the 100 forms of life. It should be the Reincarnation Sword. The one with the ancient, modern, and future should be the legendary space-time sword. Only it could connect the past, present, and future together. The last divine sword that caused the strange phenomena of heaven and earth should be the Heavenly Punishment Sword. Legend had it that the divine sword was related to the heavenly path. Each of the five divine swords had incredible power and could be said to be extremely mysterious. If these five sword shadows appeared in the eastern wilderness, it would definitely make everyone go crazy. Even those peerless sacred grounds and clans of the ancients would go crazy. However, these five sword shadows had all appeared, and only Lin Xian could see them. Boom, boom, boom. After an earth-shattering sound, the sword shadows in front of him disappeared. The surroundings changed once again. All of the illusions were quickly disappearing. The great dragon sword soul in Lin Xian's body started to rotate rapidly and even roar. At this moment, Lin Xian felt that the great dragon sword soul in his body had formed a connection with the great dragon sword in front of him. A magical force gathered in the air, and the sword shadows that had disappeared reappeared, shining brightly. Buzz! A ray of light rushed out, with the sword shadows as the center, and spread out in all directions, covering the entire Bone City. In the next moment, Lin Xian and the others felt that time and space had changed, as if they had fallen into a space-time vortex. Buzz! Buzz! After a long time, Lin Xian opened his eyes. He found that it was quiet around him. He was in a forest, and there were stars in the sky. The surroundings were abnormally quiet. Not the Bone City? Lin Xian was shocked. He looked around and found that there were no longer any terrifying sceneries around him, nor were there any deafening explosions. Apparently, they had come out. Not only him, but there were also countless figures around him. They were all the kings who had entered the Bone City. At this moment, they were all wild with joy as they looked at their surroundings. We're out, haha. We're finally out. God bless us, we're finally out. Exclamations could be heard. Obviously, everyone was very excited. After all, the Bone City was a terrifying place. They were extremely lucky to be able to come out. Beside them, the Crimson Dragon also heaved a sigh of relief. Damn, Ben Huang was scared to death. I thought we were going to be trapped in the White Bone City forever. To be honest, he was really scared. Because he had been sealed for thousands of years, if he was trapped in the Bone City again, he might as well kill himself. However, soon, the Crimson Dragon became suspicious. Kid, something's not right. Look at this place. What's wrong? Is there something wrong? Lin Xian's heart skipped a beat. This is not the Tilted Moon world. We can absorb the spiritual qi around us. The Crimson Dragon waved his dragon claws. He found that he could control the spiritual qi around him with his spiritual fire. This was something that could not be done in the Tilted Moon world. It's true. Lin Xian was also surprised. He found that the aura here was completely different from that of the Tilted Moon world. Not only the two of them, but the others also noticed this. Then, a series of exclamations sounded. Chapter 1804. Heavens, I can actually absorb spiritual energy. My suppressed cultivation has also recovered. Could it be that we've left the tilted moon mystic world? Everyone exclaimed as they realized that the scenery around them was indeed not from the tilted moon mystic world. They were out. At this moment, many people looked up to the sky and cheered excitedly. They had thought that they would be trapped in the tilted moon mystic world for the rest of their lives. Who knew that they would finally be able to leave? However, at this moment, a ray of light shot up into the sky. The Alcade Sage turned into a dazzling ray of light and instantly rushed into the sky. Not only him, but Yi Wudao and the Yi family also quickly left. Then, Gu Santong and a few other sky prides also quickly left. Lin Xian and the Crimson Dragon also did not hesitate. He grabbed Lu Mingyue and put her back into the black earth. Then, the two of them opened the profound jade platform and directly teleported. Boom! In the next moment, the powerful figures mercilessly attacked and quickly chased after Lin Xian, the Alcade Sage, and the others. However, they came up empty-handed. Lin Xian and the other young sky prides were very decisive and quickly escaped. He had narrowly escaped the attack. However, the powerful figures did not give up and quickly chased after them. Terrifying auras spread for thousands of miles, but soon, the powerful figures' faces turned green. This was because they realized that although they had left the tilted moon mystic world, they were near the entrance of the mystic world. There were a large number of peerless sages and elders of peerless sects there. Therefore, at this moment, their movements attracted the attention of those people. Soon, the Yi family and the Gu family quickly flew into the sky and protected the Alcade Sage, Gu Santong, Yi Wudao, and the others. Not only that, the elders of the remote antiquity families and peerless holy lands roared angrily and attacked the powerful figures. In an instant, a shocking battle broke out. On the other side, Lin Xian and the Crimson Dragon used the profound jade platform to continuously teleport and completely left this area. One day later, the battle ended. The major forces rested and reorganized, and the strange things that happened in the mystic world quickly spread. Those peerless great sects, peerless sacred grounds, and remote antiquity families were all shocked when they learned about what had happened in the oblique moon mysterious world. This was because they discovered that not only were there primitive residents, but there was also a mysterious city made of white bones. From the looks of it, there was definitely an ancient secret buried here. For a moment, the elders of the peerless holy lands and the remote antiquity families all had flickering eyes. Some of them even wanted to rush in. However, they discovered that the entrance had long been closed. Outsiders would not be able to open it unless a saint descended. However, such a person had not appeared for many years. Therefore, it was impossible to forcefully enter the tilted moon profound world. While the remote antiquity families and peerless sacred grounds were trying to come up with a solution, the other sects were roaring furiously. This was because they realized that they had lost more than half of their disciples. Some of them had even been completely wiped out. They were all elite geniuses, and the loss of even one of them was enough to cause them incomparable pain, let alone now that all of them had fallen. Damn, brat, don't let me find you. Otherwise, I'll tear you to pieces. The experts of the 5 elements sect roared crazily. Humph! How dare you kill the geniuses of my 4 symbols' holy grounds? There will be no way for you to survive in the eastern wasteland. The experts that were flying toward the sacred grounds were also filled with killing intent. They had learned that their genius disciple, Ouyang Feng, had not been killed by anyone. This caused them to be incomparably furious. However, the All Beginnings Holy Land was even more furious. This was because they discovered that Lu Mingyue had disappeared. After asking around, they learned that Lu Mingyue had fought with someone in the Tilted Moon Profound World and had been captured in the end. This caused them to feel a wave of dizziness. Some of them were even unable to endure it. One must know that they had nurtured Lu Mingyue as a saintess. Furthermore, they had already decided that once Lu Mingyue came out, they would immediately make her the saintess of the All-Beginnings Holy Land. But now, who would have thought that Lu Mingyue would be captured? They had already learned from the mouths of other cultivators that it was a demon king who had taken action. For Lu Mingyue to fall into the hands of such a person, everything pointed to disaster. Everyone, take a look. Is this the person? An elder of the Wavering Light Holy Land took out a portrait. On the portrait was a portrait of Lin Xian. That's right, it's him. Yes, it's this brat. Numerous cries of alarm sounded. This brat is actually that Lin Xian who was previously wanted? What? He actually came in here? Damn it. It's actually him. I didn't even notice him before. Countless roars sounded. To be honest, they hadn't noticed him before. Even if they had noticed him, they wouldn't have cared. After all, the Tilted Moon Profound World had been sealed back then. Whether or not they could come out was another matter. There was no need for them to chase after Lin Xian for the bounty of the Wavering Light Holy Land. But now, things were different. They had already come out. The situation had taken a huge turn. Furthermore, the people of the exceptional Holy Land were gnashing their teeth as they looked at Lin Xian's portrait. They wished they could skin him alive. Find him. We must capture that brat. Chapter 1805. He had been gone for almost a year. Murong Qingsheng and Shen Jingqiu hadn't been able to obtain any news, so they could only patiently search for him. They hadn't expected to finally find him. The people from the Jade Lake Sacred Ground quickly retreated because they informed Lin Xian that Shen Jingqiu was currently at a critical juncture in her cultivation and couldn't come out. Therefore, they returned to report the news. The people from the Purple Afterglow Holy Land said that Murong Qingsheng was nearby. They quickly brought Lin Xian out of the city and headed to the next one. 2 days later, Lin Xian and Murong Qingsheng met. Their eyes met, and the two of them sighed. Soon after, Lin Xian brought Murong Qingsheng into the Black Earth Vessel. 3 days later, the two of them came out. Lin Xian and Murong Qingsheng were strolling on the grassland. Murong Qingsheng listened to Lin Xian's experiences in the past year with a face full of lingering fear. Fortunately, Lin Xian had come out. Otherwise, with the strangeness of the White Bone City and the Oblique Moon Mystic World, he might have been trapped inside for the rest of his life. You always make people worry. Murong Qingsheng grumbled. Her eyes were filled with worry. Lin Xian laughed heartily. If other people knew that the Purple Afterglow Holy Land Saintess was worried about me, I wonder if those young geniuses would be heartbroken? That's right, Murong Qingsheng had become the Purple Afterglow Holy Land Saintess. Moreover, Lin Xian knew that after Shen Jingqiu came out, she would very likely become the Jade Lake Sacred Ground Saintess. They were all his women. Lin Xian was happy for them. At this time, Murong Qingsheng asked, "That's right, what do you plan to do with Lu Mingyue?" "Well, I have to think about it carefully." Lin Xian's eyes flickered. Lu Mingyue's identity was very special. If he could make use of her effectively, he might obtain the All-Beginnings Holy Land's support. Even though Lin Xian's strength was formidable right now, the forces behind him were simply too weak. He didn't have any sect or family to rely on. He could only rely on himself. If that was the case, it would be extremely dangerous for him to travel around the eastern wilderness. Therefore, he had to think of a way to rope in some forces. Now it seemed that with Murong Qingsheng and Shen Jingqiu, at least the Jade Lake Sacred Land and Zixia Sacred Land would not make an enemy out of him. It was even possible that they would lend a helping hand at certain times. Hearing that, Murong Qingsheng said, "It's up to you how you want to use her. Even if you want to keep her, I won't object." When Lin Xian heard this, he was a little surprised. Then, he muttered in his heart, "Is this a test?" In the next moment, he chuckled and said, "How can that be? I already have you and Qiu. Why would I look for anyone else?" Murong Qingsheng stared at Lin Xian with a smirk. "Is that so?" "Who is Zhao Shui? Do you know how to accept it?" Lin Xian was speechless. Murong Qingsheng twirled her hair and said, "Don't worry, I won't be so stingy, but you have to remember one thing. You can't forget me, and you can't let me down." "Of course." Lin Xian's eyes were filled with warmth as he pulled her into his arms. The two of them stayed for a month. Then, Murong Qingcheng returned to the Zixia sacred land. Lin Xian prepared to go into seclusion and cultivate. This time, he had benefited a lot in the tilted moon mystic world. His cultivation had improved greatly, and he had also comprehended some mysterious Tao patterns. He needed to digest all of this. Therefore, he came to a mountain range and opened up a cave abode. He set up a formation that covered the sky and then entered the black earth. This seclusion lasted for half a year. In this half a year, Lin Xian's cultivation had stabilized. Not only that, but he had also improved a lot. He had reached the late-stage 4-star king realm. Also, he had made some progress in comprehending those Tao patterns. It could be said that his current strength had increased by a large margin. Lin Xian didn't continue cultivating. He felt that half a year was enough. Moreover, he wanted to go out and take a look at the situation outside. Inside the Black Earth, Lin Xian came out of seclusion and saw Lu Mingyue. Lu Mingyue was still wearing her blue dress. Nothing could be more beautiful. However, her complexion was very ugly. She had been imprisoned by Lin Xian for half a year. This made her feel like she was going crazy. According to the agreement of the sect, she would become the holy maiden of the all-beginnings sacred land after she came out. She would become one of the most dazzling figures of the Eastern Wasteland's younger generation. But now, everything was gone. Not only that, but she had also become Lin Xian's servant. She couldn't accept this. Therefore, when she saw Lin Xian come out, she clenched her teeth and said, "Brat, I advise you to release me. Otherwise, the all-beginnings sacred land won't let you off." The all-beginnings sacred land? Don't worry. I've already provoked the wavering light sacred land. I don't mind adding another all-beginnings sacred land. Provoked the wavering light sacred land? Lu Mingyue was stunned. One had to know that the other party had killed the people of the 4 symbols sacred lands and 5 elements sect in the oblique moon mystic world. But now, the other party didn't mention these things and only mentioned the wavering light sacred land. Why? Lu Mingyue's eyes flickered. Soon, she recalled a piece of news she had received before entering the oblique moon mystic world. In the next instant, her complexion changed. She pointed at Lin Xian and screamed, "You are that Lin Xian wanted by the wavering light sacred land." Not bad. You actually guessed it. That's right, I am Lin Xian. Damn brat, it's actually you. Lu Mingyue was extremely shocked. She didn't expect the other party to have such a background. But in the next instant, she said in a deep voice, "Lin Xian, I advise you not to make a mistake. If you release me, I guarantee that I won't make things difficult for you. Moreover, the all-beginnings sacred land won't look for trouble with you." Is that so? I would be an idiot to believe you. Lin Xian sneered. He wasn't moved at all. Lu Mingyue's complexion turned gloomy. "What will it take for you to release me?" Lin Xian, who was sitting to the side, faintly said, "To be honest, I originally wanted to train you into a maid. That's because I didn't expect to be able to leave the oblique moon mystic world so quickly. But now that I've come out, the situation is different. You are a genius disciple of the all-beginnings sacred land. You are someone who has the potential to become the saintess. Now that you have been captured by me, it is a great humiliation to the all-beginnings sacred land. I'm afraid that the other party wishes to kill me to vent his hatred. Therefore, I can't let you live." "What? You dare to attack me?" Lu Mingyue became nervous. She subconsciously took 3 steps back. Her entire body tensed up. One had to know that the other party had never planned to kill her before. This made her think that the other party was afraid of the all-beginnings sacred land and didn't dare to kill her. But now, she saw a trace of determination in the other party's eyes. It was clear that the other party was really going to attack her. Lu Mingyue's pupils shrank. She quickly tried to think of a way to prevent herself from being killed by the other party. "You can't kill me. If you kill me, the all-beginnings sacred land will absolutely not let you off." Lin Xian shook his head. "This reason won't do. Even if I don't kill you, the all-beginnings sacred land will still come looking for trouble with me." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.